This year's Summer Showcase season is packed with games reveal from the Summer Game Fest to other publishers' showcase. I'm gonna cover all of them, including the Xbox Bethesda Games Showcase, SGF, Ubisoft, and others. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is now coming out in early 2024, and it will be launching with 2 discs, a surprise throwback to the PS1 original. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is looking to continue the story started by Final Fantasy VII Remake. This means that while it will retain some of the big story beats from the original Final Fantasy VII game, it will also be setting out on a new path of its own. So there should be plenty of surprises for longtime fans and newcomers alike. Final Fantasy had a significant presence at Summer Game Fest this year. Fans got a new look at mobile game Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. Summer Game Fest host Jeff Keighley trolled viewers with a Final Fantasy DoorDash promotion, and the show capped off with the big trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer confirmed that the game will be releasing in early 2024, meaning that its release date has been delayed from 2023 as was previously planned. The trailer also concluded by confirming that the game is coming on 2 discs, which is a surprise throwback to the PS1-era Final Fantasy games. Particularly large games in the PS1 era sometimes came on multiple discs, with the original Final Fantasy VII releasing on 3 discs. This practice is virtually unheard of in today's gaming landscape, so the reveal that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming on 2 discs earned a nice reaction from the audience. It should be noted, however, that the Final Fantasy VII Remake was also 2-disc title. Regardless, the fact that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming on 2 discs should be proof that the game is going to be huge. The trailer makes it clear that Square Enix is sparing no expense when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's graphics, with Cloud Strife, villain Sephiroth, fan favorite Tifa, and the various other members of Final Fantasy VII Remake's cast brought to life in stunning detail. The new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer is a blend of gameplay and cutscenes, with players getting a look at the game's familiar combat system and various environments that the characters will be visiting. Whereas Final Fantasy VII Remake took place almost entirely in Midgar, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is blowing the doors open to the larger FF7 world. Midgar is the first thing shown in the trailer. It shows Tifa, Aerith, Red 13, and Barrett getting carted away from the scene by Shinra soldiers. The city is in turmoil as a tornado apparently hit the city. At the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Zack is shown to be looking at Midgar, and it has a swirl around it. Was the beginning with Midgar a flash of this alternate dimension with Zack? Kalm is the first town players will visit after Midgar in the original game. Here, Cloud will explain to the party how he came to be in Soldier and how he met Sephiroth. While the town is not shown in the trailer, the Kalm Inn is. Either Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will start at the inn already, or we might get a short time frame to explore the open world before we get to Kalm. The Chocobo farm is located just south of Kalm in the original game. Players have to purchase the Chocobo lure materia to win over a Chocobo in the wild. Players need a Chocobo to cross over the swamp wherein the deadly Midgar Zolom sleeps. The farm is shown in the trailer along with Cloud and the others riding the big yellow birds, but no Midgar Zolom was in sight. The Mithril mine is on the other side of the marsh in the first game. It's a pretty normal cave without a lot of intricacy to the design. There are multiple scenes shown throughout the Mithril mine, including the finale, where the party has to face Elena and Root of the Turks. There are 2 changes to this scene. 1, Sang is nowhere to be found. 2, the party is only supposed to meet the Turks and not fight them. Players are never shown what Junon looks like internally. However, there is one brief flash in the trailer that shows Cloud running towards the massive sea city. It's easy to tell what it is thanks to the big cannon sticking out of it along with the high wind on top. Will Cid be in this game too, or will he be reserved along with other playable characters in the finale of this trilogy? The Shinra cargo ship gives Cloud and the others safe passage across the sea to the other continent. The ship is barely shown in the trailer except for the part where Sephiroth arrives. In the original game, he throws a Genova sample at the party for a boss fight. That happens in this Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer as well, so avid fans can piece together that this must be the Shinra cargo ship. Cosmo Canyon is another location example that is not shown completely. There is a scene that shows Bugenhagen, Red 13's grandpa, telling the party about the planet in his observatory. The observatory is located at the top of Cosmo Canyon, thus, that area must be in the game. Golden Saucer is the stop before that, but it is not shown in the trailer. The Nibel reactor is located north of Nibelheim in the original game. It doesn't play much significance in the present-day party, but it is a big part of Cloud's aforementioned flashback. It is here that Cloud supposedly fought and killed Sephiroth while saving Tifa in the process. In the trailer, the only scene shown is the part where Sephiroth strikes Tifa down outside Genova's room. The Sleeping Forest is the area Cloud follows Aerith into on the way to the City of the Ancients. It's technically just an image of her, teasing Cloud to follow. Now, Cloud is shown running in a forest with Aerith in the trailer. This could be anywhere in the game, but since no one else is with them, it might be safe to assume this is a redesigned version of the Sleeping Forest. It also might be the part where Cloud meets Yuffie for the first time, who also appears in a forest. The Northern Crater could be the finale of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It is shown in a flash in the trailer with Cloud and some other robed men chanting, "Reunion," as they glide along a dark pathway. Once the party reaches this area in the original, Cloud is lost, Sephiroth's real body is discovered, and the weapon bosses are unleashed. This would be a heck of a way to end the game, but it would also cause a lot of turmoil for the fans. Turn-based combat definitely has a place in gaming, and Persona and Shin Megami Tensei is showing that it still has potential in the AAA space. However, with Final Fantasy XV, Square Enix made a statement that action combat was the flavor of the franchise's future. And Final Fantasy VII Remake had the tough task of staying faithful to its roots while also adhering to the new philosophy. What resulted was arguably the best battle mechanics that Final Fantasy has ever used, along with Final Fantasy XVI. It required precise timing not just to dodge attacks in real time, but also to know when was the perfect time to dip into the menu system to use an item, summon a primal, or perform a high-damage maneuver. Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat was kinetic and fluid, but players also had to be meticulously organized with the menus, and know when is the best time to swap characters. It was excellent, so it's little surprise that Final Fantasy Rebirth will use a similar philosophy when it launches. Aerith is shown several times in the trailer, but she doesn't have a large role in it. Her best lines are delivered when she enters the overworld for the first time. She is awestruck by the fact that the planet still has so much green in it. To her, everything is supposed to look dead like how it was within Midgar except her little garden area. The big question for Aerith in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is whether or not she survives. Barret also doesn't have a huge role in the trailer, although he does have some lines. The coolest part in the trailer shows Barret squaring off with some sort of golem within the Mithril Mines with Red 13 by his side. It looks like the two heroes get separated from the others, as they are the only two health bars on the screen. This boss looks like a new creation for the Remake universe, as there was no boss within the Mithril Mines originally. Bugenhagen is Red 13's grandpa in the original game, something that is never really explained since Red 13 belongs to a dog-like species, which is also never elaborated on. This adopted grandfather does take care of Red 13 until he is captured by Shinra to be experimented on. Bugenhagen's role in the original is minimal, but his presence in the trailer shows that players will reach Cosmo Canyon at the very least within Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's timeframe. Cloud is the main protagonist in the Final Fantasy VII series, so, of course, he is in this trailer. Most of his voiceover is him explaining to the group how he met Sephiroth. That's indeed the whole theme of the trailer as both Cloud and Tifa go into this backstory. What will Final Fantasy VII Rebirth change about this backstory, if anything? Final Fantasy VII Remake put a huge spin on the original with the inclusion of the ghostly phantoms trying to keep the timeline in place. Will they return to right some plot holes in Cloud's story in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth 2? Elena of the Turks is one of the two new characters shown in the trailer, the first being the aforementioned Bugenhagen. She appears alongside Rude to fight Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa in the trailer. This, again, is how the Mithril Mines section is supposed to end in the original game, and there is never a separation of the pack. Also, there is never a boss fight. The party talks to Sang, Rude, and Elena, and that is it. Red 13 appeared at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, as he was supposed to, within Shinra HQ. Because he is a late party member, the developers didn't think it was a good investment to make him a playable character. Instead, he assisted the party as an AI companion. In the trailer, it shows he is finally playable and looks to be quite speedy too. Sephiroth appears in two big scenes within the Summer Game Fest trailer. First, he appears in the scene within the Shinra cargo ship, wherein he unleashes a clone of Genova to fight the party. He also appears in the finale of the trailer, striking down Tifa inside the Nibel reactor. This scene is part of the flashback that Cloud will presumably explain within the com-in as he did in the original game. Most of Tifa's involvement in this trailer has already been shared. The one part that has not been discussed yet is the opening. It shows Midgar in ruins after a tornado apparently tore through some sectors. In the news feed, Tifa is shown on a stretcher along with Aerith, Barret, and Red 13. Is the party going to go back to Midgar in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or does this quick scene showcase another universe? Let's remember Final Fantasy VII Remake ended with Zack looking at Midgar, which is about to be swallowed up by a tornado in seemingly a different dimension. However, something that fans likely didn't expect a certain character to steal the spotlight. Despite the lingering questions in the air regarding Zack Fair and even Aerith, the FF7 Rebirth trailer takes a sharp turn to hone in on Tifa Lockhart and if she's truly the childhood friend Cloud's known ever since he was a child. What players see in the Nibelheim reactor in the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth trailer is certainly concerning. But fans who have experienced the original game might be well aware that there's very little to actually worry about. While Sephiroth aims, and likely succeeds if the previous FF7 Rebirth trailer is anything to go by, to have Cloud doubt that the Tifa in the party is the real deal, the truth is already out there. What Sephiroth is referring to is when Tifa tried to attack him in a rage over killing her father, to which he deflected her with his sword and sent her careening down the steps. In the original timeline, Tifa was injured, but she certainly didn't die. While Cloud originally believed he saved Tifa from her fall in the reactor, Zack Fair was really the one who was there to help her. It could be very possible that due to the Genova cells within Cloud, as hinted at in the very same trailer as Cloud seen in a cloak muttering, reunion, at one point. Sephiroth is using the gaps in his memory to force him to doubt his teammates. As many players can likely see through Sephiroth's lies just by remembering the events that occurred before FF7R. The same fans are likely asking as to why Rebirth seems to be insisting Tifa died when there's a much more questionable member of Cloud's party that should be questioned instead. This is, of course, Aerith Gainsborough, who has made many a player wonder if she's the same Aerith from the original game, or one who seems to be aware of the events that have happened previously. FF7 Remake seemed rather insistent that Aerith knew a lot more than she should have. Even though the English trailer may be vague as to who Sephiroth is talking about, it is undoubtedly about Tifa as her supposed death is mentioned directly in Japanese. Even going so far as to use her name specifically. There could be far more lurking in that shadows regarding Tifa, Aerith, or anyone else in their party that hasn't been made exactly clear just yet. All that fans need to know is the Sephiroth is likely trying to sneak something by Cloud in plain sight. No matter what Sephiroth's words truly mean. Be it something to distract Cloud and the player or something the swordsman has done in regard to changing previous events after the Arbiters of Fate were destroyed. There's definitely more behind it than what the trailer shows. While we are within their right to be concerned about Tifa's fate, it's very likely that her fighting spirit won't be leaving permanently anytime soon. Yuffie didn't play a big role in the original PS4 release of Final Fantasy VII Remake, as in she wasn't in the game at all. However, when the game was re-released on PS5, she got her one interquel DLC. The finale of that DLC has Yuffie escape Midgar to parts unknown. In this trailer, she unites with Cloud and the others as she is supposed to do in the original game. She doesn't have a huge part in the trailer, but there is a fun scene with her in a battle wherein she teams up with Red 13 for some sort of new combo attack. One of the biggest questions fans are asking is whether Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be an open-world game or not. Much of Remake took place in the concrete jungle of Midgar's slums, which felt overcrowded at times, and a little too claustrophobic. The game's linearity was pinpointed as one of its only criticisms, largely due to the fact that the Final Fantasy series is synonymous with freedom. While Rebirth's newest trailer definitely alluded to more open, sparsely populated areas, showing Cloud, Barret, and the party traversing beautiful green fields, it didn't provide an answer to the burning question of whether it is an open world or not. Part of the reason for Final Fantasy VII's enduring popularity is the large number of memorable characters it introduced. Not just in the likes of Cloud and Sephiroth, but others too, like party members Vincent Valentine and Cid Highwind. Neither is yet to show up in Remake's timeline, and Cid's late entrance into the original game's narrative means he may not actually appear until the third game. But Vincent Valentine's part in the story should certainly commence sometime during Rebirth. Despite this, there was no sign of him in the trailer, with the only party members shown being characters already introduced in Remake and its DLC. Zack Fair is an important part of the Final Fantasy VII universe. The recent Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core reunion reintroduced the likable character to modern fans, and his inclusion in the final scene of Remake's DLC, titled Intermission, has confirmed that he is in fact alive and well in this new timeline despite his death at the end of Reunion. Many are expecting him to play a significant role in Rebirth, with his relationship with both Cloud and Aerith making him an important component. Rebirth has been given a release window of early 2024. All things considered, only the most optimistic would have expected the game to launch this year, so that's about as good as fans could have realistically hoped for. As Final Fantasy XVI's release comes and goes, Square Enix will likely shift its marketing focus to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And fans should expect more trailers and gameplay footage as the year goes on. The Summer Game Fest announcement that the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is releasing in early 2024 has given credibility to some other Final Fantasy franchise remake leaks. I'll give more info on that and Final Fantasy XVI in my next video. Mortal Kombat 1 was just recently announced, and with the new gameplay reveal trailer out, it's safe to say the game looks incredible. Mortal Kombat 1 has been all about change, and be it to the story, the timeline, or the overall gameplay loop of a Mortal Kombat game, developers have been promising fans something new and fresh. Previously I've discussed about this during the initial reveal and all the different editions and pre-order. The rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero has been one of the most iconic rivalries in fighting game history, with iconic moves to go along with it. It has been a staple of the franchise for decades now. The last few games have seen how Scorpion and Sub-Zero can find common ground and work together. In fact, in Mortal Kombat 11, they were pretty close to being considered allies and friends. Mortal Kombat 1 with its timeline reset has taken this up a notch. Scorpion and Sub-Zero are now brothers. Both characters are seemingly part of the Lin Kuei clan as well. Another major change that players should be prepared for is the fact that Sub-Zero isn't the honorable and stoic Kuai Lang players have been used to for a while. In fact, it's his older brother Bi-Han, who in the original timeline later became Noob Saibot. So this in itself is a massive change many fans were not expecting. This was already slightly hinted at during the original Mortal Kombat 1 reveal trailer, but the new gameplay reveals have confirmed that Mileena is the ruling royal in this new timeline, not Kitana. This is a big change, and it is going to be very interesting to see how her character develops as a leader. Moreover, it seems Mileena's facial scars and teeth are developing as the story progresses. What the cause of them is not clear as of right now. But this is also a clever change as it can add some depth to Mileena's character and her potential descent into the character players are familiar with. The relationship dynamics between Mileena and Kitana will also be very fun to watch. Their combat dialogue already shows that Mileena is a little distrusting, or even jealous of her sister. Kitana, on the other hand, seems to be completely loyal as seen through her dialogue with Sub-Zero. While it may be too soon to see how far this goes, it is pretty apparent from gameplay reveals as well as how both Mortal Kombat pros and gamers alike have been raving about it, that this game has tons of combo variety. Mortal Kombat 1 from the outset seems to have tons of different combo routes, combo extensions, and cameo extensions. And players who got their hands on the reveal were already perfecting combos going up to 50% in damage. While at its core Mortal Kombat 1 seems to be a footsie and neutral heavy fighting game just like 11 Malawian Kwaches, it has already shown that it has tons of potential to have fun, unique, and difficult to execute combos, which is exactly what hardcore fans want. The fan favorite blind swordsman Kenshir is back, and he's not blind. Kenshi's return in the recent reveals shows a younger version, seemingly fighting against underworld forces for his family legacy and to protect people. This Kenshi has his eyesight but does have the same spiritual or puppet master-like powers fans can expect. Additionally, certain costumes of Kenshi do feature him wearing his signature red blindfold, so there is a strong chance players get to see him turn blind in this game. Different press releases and tweets from Ed Boon seem to indicate this game will show a lot more love to 3D-era Mortal Kombat characters like Kenshi, which is a big plus. Stryker has already been teased as a cameo and fans are eager to see who comes next. Cameos are the big feature being introduced in this game. They are essentially similar to assists in other fighting games such as Dragon Ball FighterZ and Smash Bros. Recent reveals have shown that cameos are going to be an integral part of Mortal Kombat 1's gameplay loop, and they're not just some random feature. Not only are the cameo characters such as Jax and Sonya with the player character in intros and outros, but they also form a part of fatal blows and fatalities as well. Beyond that, cameos are integral to how the combat operates. They can be used to extend combos, cover unsafe strings, throw projectiles, aid in grabs, and a lot more. They seem to have their own timing windows and difficulty curve, and different cameos can completely change how a certain character operates. Mortal Kombat 1's cameo fighter system has been at the forefront of fans' minds since the title cinematic reveal trailer last month. Fans first learned of the new feature through a cryptic FAQ page on the title's official website. This strange reveal left fans with plenty of questions, with the general lack of gameplay leading some to question the title's quality. With this week's Mortal Kombat 1 presentation at Summer Game Fest 2023, that is no longer the case. Mortal Kombat 1's cameo fighters are set to shake up an iconic Mortal Kombat feature, ushering in a new combat system that pays homage to the series' early beginnings. Mortal Kombat 1's gameplay presentation finally revealed how cameo fighters work. After one Malawian Kwacha players choose their main combatant, they are presented with an entirely separate roster of cameo fighters. These fighters can be called upon in battle to deliver different attacks, with each capable of performing 4 unique moves depending on which direction the player hits when summoning them. In addition to simple combo breakers and combo extenders, cameo fighters can be called upon to deliver Mortal Kombat 1's version of Fatal Blow's brutal cinematic attacks that operate off of a meter system. As seen in the gameplay trailer, these unique attacks now depict a collaborative effort between a main fighter and a cameo fighter, with each delivering a devastating X-ray attack in tandem. Cameo fighters are the next evolution of Mortal Kombat 11's Fatal Blows, which were, in themselves, a redesign of Mortal Kombat X's X-ray moves. Fatal Blows repurposed X-ray moves, splitting the feature's meter into offensive and defensive halves, and implementing it as a last-ditch comeback mechanic. Like its predecessor, Mortal Kombat 1's cameo fighters will operate from a split meter, restricting the frequency with which they can be summoned. Mortal Kombat 1's gameplay trailer revealed 6 more characters returning to the series. The title's reveal trailer confirmed the return of Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Raiden, Kung Lao, Kidna, Mileena, Johnny Cage, and Shang Tsung. Now, Kenshi, Jax, Goro, Kano, Sonya Blade, and Stryker have been confirmed as well. Of those 6, 3 are already confirmed to be cameo fighters, as the Choose Cameo screen depicts Sonya, Kano, and Jax in their classic Mortal Kombat costumes. Alongside his explanation of cameo fighters' implementation, Ed Boon teased returning one Malawian Kwacha fighters and took the time to address many fans' single most pressing concerns. He explained that the title's rosters are not exclusive, meaning that those fighters confirmed as cameos thus far may appear in the main roster as well. He went on to state that various classic and throwback characters will appear as cameo fighters and that the feature exists, in part, as a novelty for longtime fans. With many spots still left unclaimed on both rosters, many fans continue to hold out hope that their favorites will make the cut. Boon went on to describe how players can summon Mortal Kombat 1's cameo fighters with a single button press. If the player pushes a certain direction while calling out their cameo partner, they will perform a different attack. And Boon states that players will be able to perform combos with their main fighter. However, players will only be able to do this a certain number of times, as there is a meter limiting how often the cameo fighters can be called out. Lastly, Boon revealed that some cameo fighter options will overlap with the main Mortal Kombat 1 roster, with the former representing classic combatants like Sub-Zero, Kano, and Sonya Blade in their older incarnations from the original Mortal Kombat. This means that players can mix the rebooted version of Sub-Zero with his younger self, for example. Boon also promised that the cameo roster will dig into the series' past to deliver some fun surprises for fans. With the release of Mortal Kombat 1 only a few months away, it appears players may start getting regular looks into what NetherRealm has in store after hinting Kombat cast may soon be returning online. The series reboot is already setting up a new world born under the direction of Liu Kang. How different the lives of some of these fighters will be in this new era, and what other tricks the studio has up its sleeves when it comes to gameplay. History has shown a weekly update show is the perfect template to do this for Mortal Kombat, and given the hints on social media, it seems like only a question of when it returns. NetherRealm began hinting at the return of Kombat cast on Twitter, with some longtime fans of the series asking the official Mortal Kombat account if the show's comeback was a possibility. While the studio has not provided any details, some posts did receive responses saying that the weekly show is coming back in the very near future. Kombat cast began as an avenue to promote the release of Mortal Kombat 10, showing off gameplay and revealing new members of the roster on a consistent basis in the months preceding its April 2015 release. The show continued for several months after, highlighting matches in the community and debuting DLC fighters such as Predator and Jason Voorhees. NetherRealm brought the show back in the lead-up to Mortal Kombat 11's 2019 release, once again using it to showcase the game and the characters. The return of Kombat cast appears to come at an advantageous time for NetherRealm due to the potential leak of Mortal Kombat 1's roster. While there has been no direct confirmation about the leaked roster's accuracy, players could argue it gives the studio incentive to get out ahead of any further leaks given the game's title and trailer were leaked shortly before being revealed. Mortal Kombat 1 appears to be a good fighting game, and more importantly it doesn't seem to be the same fighting game. Cameo character do mix things up enough that there will be a learning curve for everyone, novice to veteran. Narratively the characters have been remixed but movesets still hit expected beats, albeit with cool twists. This truly feels like the start of something new. If you want to know more about the roster and DLC leaks, check out my previous video of Mortal Kombat 1. In addition to this, Summer Game Fest also had extended gameplay for Assassin's Creed Mirage and Alan Wake 2, which we already discussed from the PlayStation Showcase last month. With its age of exploration-themed MMO New World still struggling to stay afloat less than 2 years after launch, Amazon Games is giving the genre another go with its upcoming game, Throne and Liberty. Created by Korean developer NCSoft, well regarded among MMORPG fans for its work on games like City of Heroes and Guild Wars. Throne and Liberty is a fantasy MMORPG with a heavy emphasis on fast-paced action. But even as the action-packed trailer for Throne and Liberty that debuted at the Summer Game Fest delighted viewers, the NCSoft title still faces an uphill battle to succeed where Amazon's previous MMO efforts failed. Launching Throne and Liberty at a time when New World continues to hemorrhage players is a risky proposition and, if not executed correctly, could leave Amazon with 2 titles destined to end up on the scrap heap of dead MMO games. In order for Throne and Liberty to avoid going down the same path as Amazon's first ill-fated attempt at MMO success, it will have to take lessons from New World's numerous missteps while also delivering gameplay that is engaging enough to allow it to compete against other titans of the genre. Amazon Games' inaugural MMO faced numerous problems even before the launch of New World, as the developers struggled to decide whether it should be a hardcore PvP title or something more casual, eventually settling on a more traditional MMO model designed largely around PvE gameplay. New World's early identity crisis set it off to a rough start from which it never fully recovered. Throne and Liberty could avoid this problem by ensuring that the game has a clear focus, freeing players from worrying that the core gameplay could change wildly with the next patch. In addition to its often unfocused gameplay, New World also suffered from numerous technical and balance issues that further soured players' perceptions of the game. Issues experienced by players have ranged from in-game companies using exploits to manipulate control of territory to an unbalanced ammo economy in New World that made crafting and purchasing weapons prohibitively expensive. To avoid these same sorts of problems with Throne and Liberty, NCSoft will need to ensure that the game's subsystems, from its economy to its intra-guild combat, are just as polished as the game's gorgeous graphics. Much like New World before it, one of the most noticeable things about Throne and Liberty is the quality of its graphics compared to other MMO competitors. But, as Amazon learned with New World, it takes more than impressive art design and high-poly character models to compete in an MMO landscape already crowded with titles competing for gamers' attention. Not only will Throne and Liberty have to compete against Blizzard's steady stream of updates and improvements to World of Warcraft, but also highly regarded titles like Final Fantasy XIV and Lord of the Rings Online. One thing working in Throne and Liberty's favor is the game's free-to-play business model, which may entice players looking to try something new without opening their wallets. This could help Throne and Liberty compete against titles like World of Warcraft, but NCSoft still needs to ensure that the content on offer is compelling enough for players to justify the download. It remains to be seen if Throne and Liberty will implement something along the lines of New World Season Passes. But a similar system with high-quality unlocks could help NCSoft ensure that gamers always have new reasons to keep playing. The fast-paced combat and unique traversal options on display in the reveal trailer show that NCSoft hopes to deliver a new sort of MMORPG experience with Throne and Liberty. If it can learn from New World's mistakes and deliver a game with a clear focus and solid gameplay to match its gorgeous graphics, then Throne and Liberty could become the foothold into the MMO market that Amazon has been so desperately seeking. The Chinese Room has revealed the first trailer for its upcoming first-person adventure game, Still Wakes the Deep. Announced during the Xbox Games Showcase 2023 with a brand new gameplay trailer, Still Wakes the Deep is set to arrive in early 2024 for Xbox, PlayStation, PC. Set on an offshore oil rig in the middle of the ocean, the player takes the role of a worker fighting for his life through a vicious storm. Developed by the Chinese Room, the scant slice of in-game footage and gloomy cinematics shown on stage ticked all of my boxes, and amid the current wave of survival horror intrigue, this game has already shot to the very top of my most wanted list. The Chinese Room, of course, is the team behind Dear Esther, and the similarly thoughtful, mysterious and unsettling Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. In 2013, the studio tried its hand in the horror genre with Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs, a follow-up to Frictional Games' 2010 indie hit Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Typical of the Chinese Room's games generally, the reveal trailer didn't actually reveal all that much at all. In fact, the first half of the short showed a camera moving across choppy waters, before the game's oil rig setting came into focus through the sea mist. We were then taken inside, a lone figure was shown fumbling around the rig, it clearly now in disrepair, before falling from a helipad, crashing to the platform below. Viewed through their eyes, the protagonist scrambled around increasingly decrepit hallways and industrial spaces, before a cliched, but apt, crescendo of off-key strings led to the trailer's climax. And only then, despite it seeming obvious, did it become definite. A high-pitched scream was followed by the protagonist frantically slamming a heavy metal door against a bulkhead. In terms of story details, it's December 1975 and after disaster strikes the Beira D oil rig off the coast of Scotland, the player must navigate the collapsing rig to save their crew. The storm isn't the only threat. The player will also have to face a terrifying, unrelenting foe that's managed to board the oil rig. All lines of communication have been severed, the game description reads. All exits are gone. All that remains is to face the unknowable horror that's come aboard. Search for your crew and help them survive if you can. Run, climb, and swim through the flooding corridors and storm-lashed outer decks. With the Resident Evil 4 remake in mind, the Dead Space remake, Layers of Fears, Amnesia, The Outlast Trials, the Alone in the Dark reboot, and the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake to name but some of games flying the blood-spattered flag for survival horror at the moment. The genre is in the best position it's been in for years. Capcom revealed Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, a combat game with horror themes and a colorful aesthetic. Seemingly taking place in Japan, Path of the Goddess features masked characters fighting off monsters with swords and bows, and magic. The trailer shows off quite a few of these creepy-looking enemies, including a few eyeless monsters with massive tongues and some quickly crawling human-like creatures, in depth as the characters fight them off in fast-paced fights. Quite a few fans were quick to note that the game seems to take stylistic inspiration from Capcom's own Onimusha series, which hasn't seen a new edition since 2006's Onimusha Dawn of Dreams. Path of the Goddess did not yet receive a release window. In Kunitsu-Gami, people have defiled a sacred mountain, and it has physically manifested as blight spreading across the lands. The diseased flora and fauna have attracted creatures called the Seethe, which you have to fight and vanquish to clear the path for the Spirit Stone Maiden so she can perform the rite of cleansing and restore the lands. Capcom said the game follows in the footsteps of its previous titles with traditional Japanese themes, such as Okami and Shinsekai Into the Depths. It was also developed using its RE engine, which was originally designed for Resident Evil 7 Biohazard but was subsequently used for titles that include more Resident Evil games, Street Fighter 6 and Devil May Cry 5. Despite being around for decades, it still only feels like the games industry is just scratching the surface of what virtual reality can offer. While the Meta Quest, HTC Vive, Valve Index, and PlayStation VR have been around for years now, there's still a significant lack of fully fledged AAA VR experiences on the market, with Half-Life Alyx, Horizon Call of the Mountain and Walking Dead Saints and Sinners still being the leading examples of what's possible with VR. But Ubisoft could be about to throw another contender in the ring with Assassin's Creed Nexus. Tentatively announced a few years ago, officially named a few weeks ago, and finally given its first trailer at the recent Ubisoft Forward Showcase, Assassin's Creed Nexus has the potential to be one of the greatest VR games of all time. Following the story of someone using an animus to locate an ancient artifact, Assassin's Creed Nexus doesn't just cover one assassin or time period, but three, all of which are some of the most beloved characters and settings in Assassin's Creed history. Confirmed in its Ubisoft Forward gameplay trailer, Assassin's Creed Nexus will put players directly in the boots of three iconic assassins, Ezio, Cassandra, and Connor. According to the game's creative director, David Votipka, Assassin's Creed Nexus story ties together these three assassins by having them all come into contact with a mysterious ancient artifact at one point in their lives. But on the way to that artifact, players can expect to parkour and murder their way through some iconic locations from the series' history. Again, according to the game's creative director, Assassin's Creed Nexus Ezio missions will apparently take place 2 years after the events of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, seemingly dropping the player into Venice. Assassin's Creed Nexus Connor missions will take place concurrently with the events of Assassin's Creed 3 in the colonial town of Boston, meaning that players can expect to still run into plenty of British redcoats. Finally, Assassin's Creed Nexus Cassandra missions will jump 20 years after the events of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, taking place during the real-world historical event known as the Reign of the 30 Tyrants, when 30 pro-Spartan leaders took control of Athens and mercilessly executed at least 1,500 Athenians, and exiled even more. From what fans have seen from Assassin's Creed Nexus' first trailer, it seems as though each of these iconic locations looks just how fans would remember them from each assassin's respective game. But unlike Venice, Boston, and Athens in past Assassin's Creed entries, these settings in VR won't quite be open world. Assassin's Creed Nexus creative director, in a blog post on Ubisoft's website, refers to these areas as open maps, stating that they take smaller sections of past Assassin's Creed's open worlds and condense them down into smaller, still fully explorable open areas. So while players won't be able to explore all of Venice, Boston, or Athens, they will still be able to parkour and explore quite a bit of their surroundings freely. Ubisoft's blog post also sheds a bit more light on how each of Assassin's Creed Nexus playable characters differs from one another. Though each assassin will apparently have essentially the same moveset, their weapons do differ slightly. For instance, while Connor and Ezio have 2 hidden blades, Cassandra has just one. Similarly, while Ezio has a one-handed crossbow, Connor has his own bow, and Cassandra apparently has some kind of special bow, perhaps giving her arrows a homing effect. Melee-wise, both Ezio and Cassandra will wield swords, and Connor will use his tomahawk. Assassin's Creed Nexus VR could be a really cool spin-off, but it also feels like a strange choice. The focal point of the Assassin's Creed franchise has always been Abstergo's powerful Animus machine. This device lets characters like Desmond Miles and Leland Hassan explore the stories of their ancestors to uncover artifacts that should save the present. While the franchise has moved away from that core concept a bit recently, the Animus still plays a very important role in the main story. The series could not exist without it, and the concept could have shined on the Meta Quest. While the Animus is much more advanced than Assassin's Creed Nexus VR will be, it is still a very similar concept. Players will take a trip back in time, step into the shoes of an assassin, and view the world as if they were that person. This is the same thing that characters like Desmond Miles do in the mainline series, albeit with a bit more immersion. The VR space would not be able to replicate the Animus completely, but it still should have formed the backbone of this VR experience. The concept was sitting there waiting to be tapped, but for some reason, Ubisoft chose to take it in a different direction. Assassin's Creed Nexus VR should have just been called Assassin's Creed Animus and could have explored even more assassins throughout history. Ubisoft could have made players feel like they were entering the fictional machine, and then given them a choice on who they assumed control of. It could have been virtually indistinguishable from the real Animus and would have led to a very immersive experience for fans of the franchise. While the studio may add more assassins as the years go by, its current form pales in comparison to what it could have been with the Animus at its side. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora will be available on December 7th, complete with open-world co-op support. Ubisoft's open-world Avatar game was first announced 6 years ago, and now a release date is finally in sight. The Avatar franchise went surprisingly quiet after the record-breaking box office success of the first film, but now the franchise is back in a major way. Avatar: The Way of Water passed $2 billion at the global box office, meaning Avatar 4 and 5 are virtual guarantees. In the meantime, fans have Avatar 3 to look forward to next year, and they will also be able to play Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora this December. On December 7th, Avatar fans will be let loose in massive entertainment's take on open-world Pandora. The new Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora gameplay revealed by Ubisoft showed third-person adventuring as players explore Pandora's gorgeous jungles on the backs of their Ikran. There will also be first-person shooter gameplay, with players fighting against the RDA in battles that look pulled straight out of a Far Cry game. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora will be able to experience both the third-person exploration and first-person shooter gameplay with a friend, as Ubisoft confirmed that the game has online co-op support. Along with a gameplay overview, Avatar fans were also treated to a trailer that revealed more about the Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora story. As revealed by the trailer, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora is set in the planet's western frontier, an area unexplored by the Avatar movies so far. Players take control of a Nausix who was raised by the RDA. The RDA then starts massacring the Nausix under its care, but the player character and some other Nausix are saved and put in a cryo-sleep. 15 years go by, and the player character Nausix is free to explore Pandora. As a Nausix raised by the RDA, the player character has to relearn what it means to be a Nausix. Early missions will have players interacting with Nausix tribes and being taught things like how to bond with their Ikran. Similar to how the Nausix in the movies connect to their spirit tree, the player character Nausix in Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora will be able to connect to the planet and through that upgrade their skills via a traditional skill tree. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora looks exactly as advertised. It is an open-world Avatar game in the style of Ubisoft's other open-world titles. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora revolves around a Nausix that was captured by the RDA early in their life, and forced to fight for them. During an attack on their facility, the RDA turn on their captured Nausix subjects, and the player character manages to narrowly avoid death with the help of their Avatar mentor. Placed in cryosleep, the Nausix player character wakes up 15 years later, finding themselves back on Pandora on its western frontier. Set around the same time as the first Avatar movie, James Cameron himself has confirmed that there will be some crossover between the two projects. Though Frontiers of Pandora is set in a completely different region of Pandora, with a different set of Nausix inhabitants. According to the recent Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora gameplay trailer, players will control this estranged Nausix warrior as they reconnect with their home planet and unite the surrounding Nausix clans to fight back against the RDA. Being an entirely canon entry in the franchise, Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora has the perfect opportunity to expand parts of the lore that the mainline movies haven't covered yet, and it looks like it's doing exactly that with its various new Nausix tribes and clans. The first Nausix clan introduced in Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora's gameplay trailer is the Aranahi tribe. This clan is located in the Kingler Forest, an area of dense and vibrant vegetation, surrounded by breathtaking floating mountains. The Aranahi clan is a peaceful one, focused on using the surrounding nature to weave clothes and other fabrics. The Aranahi will apparently act as a tutorial clan for the player, teaching them the basics of hunting, and taking them on their very first flight. Heading to the north in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora will take players to the upper plains, large stretches of open fields filled with bright plants and open bodies of water. The Zeswa Nasix clan resides here, along with giant mammoth-like beasts known as the Zakru, who the tribe has an inherently close bond with. The Zeswa clan will be responsible for teaching the player how to tame and ride a dire horse. Venturing west will take players to the Clouded Forest, the site of the last confirmed Nasix clan, the Kametyre. Though the Kametyre are healers, they apparently have their own dark reason for hiding in the misty forest. In many ways, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora shares this strength with Horizon Forbidden West, another game that prided itself on vibrant yet realistic environments, sweeping vistas, gorgeous lighting, and a variety of unique and noteworthy plants and trees. Much like Horizon Forbidden West, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora's foliage also has a practical use in gameplay as well. In Avatar, players will be able to pick fruit and harvest trees and wildlife, which seemingly gives them crafting materials that can then be used to make new weapons and upgrade existing ones. It seems likely that Avatar Frontiers of Pandora might also feature a weapon and cosmetic dyeing system as well, just like Horizon Forbidden West, allowing players to change the appearance of their weapons and outfits by harvesting specific plants. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora also integrates its foliage into the game's traversal systems, with the trailer showing the player character bouncing off mushrooms and climbing retracting vines. With the Avatar franchise revolving around a core theme of nature, it's great to see Avatar Frontiers of Pandora incorporating this into the actual gameplay as well. Being a video game set within the Avatar universe, there are many elements present in those films that players will expect to be able to do in the game. Leaping across the towering treetops, shooting a bow and arrow, and engaging with the wilderness and nature all seem to be on full display in Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora. From the gameplay overview trailer presented during Ubisoft's 2023 showcase, it seems like developer Massive Entertainment went to great lengths in order to replicate the look and feel of everything in the wondrous world that James Cameron has created. Of course, this includes being able to ride the airborne creatures known as banshees. As seen in the two Avatar films so far, banshees are giant winged animals that the Nasix use to soar across the skies of Pandora, and Massive Entertainment has also included it in the upcoming open-world game. The notion of diving off a cliff and calling out to one of these winged beasts in order to witness the world in its entirety seems breathtaking. In 2021, Insomniac released Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart for the PS5, which was gamer acclaimed as a technical showcase for what would be possible on Sony's latest home console. While it was certainly breathtaking, it did receive some criticism, specifically aimed at the aerial combat sections in the game. There are a handful of set-piece moments in which Ratchet would take control of giant winged creatures, similar to the banshees from Avatar, and take to the sky in order to combat his enemies. While it's an interesting idea on paper and new concepts are always welcome, the execution wasn't exactly perfect. These aerial sections were often cited as a lower point in the runtime of the game, considered as filler and a tad repetitive. To pour salt in the wound, the controls in these sections were somewhat clunky as well, with the winged beast Ratchet rides not being as responsive as it should be considering how fast-paced the battle was. The Banshee will hopefully be integrated into the game more like the aerial machines in Horizon Forbidden West, recapturing the exhilarating experience of taking the sky and gazing at the world below. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora looks extremely promising so far, aiming to deliver the interactive experience fans of the movies have dreamed of. The gameplay looks like a mix of Avatar and Far Cry and should provide a fresh spin on the open-world gaming experience. Massive Entertainment hopefully nails the Banshee sections as well to ensure a well-rounded experience when the game eventually launches. Summer Game Fest brought with it plenty of exciting announcements, including trailers for Mortal Kombat 1, FF7 Rebirth, and Path of Exile 2. Grinding Gear Games' free-to-play action RPG follow-up to Path of Exile was announced back in 2019, but the developer has been fairly quiet about its upcoming sequel in the years since. Now, fans have been treated to a world premiere trailer showing off some of Path of Exile 2's action and the promise of more details to come during ExileCon in July. The 2013 hit Path of Exile, initially released for PC and later ported to consoles, was warmly received by players. With praise for its genre innovations, darkly intriguing world design, and challenging gameplay, it was considered a solid addition to the pool of action RPGs. Although developer Grinding Gear Games supplied a steady stream of expansion packs over the years, a decade after its release, Path of Exile has started to feel dated compared to its competitors. An update is sorely needed, and with how Path of Exile II is shaping up, it seems like it could be the perfect accompaniment to Blizzard's recently released Diablo IV. The Ngamakanui teaser trailer gave fans a better look at the highly anticipated Path of Exile 2, including glimpses of gameplay, an insight into the new look of the in-game world, and a selection of the game's enemies. Although the trailer was only short, gamers were pleased to see Path of Exile 2 in action and to be reassured that they'll be able to get their hands on it soon. Showing a brief encounter as a character is swarmed by enemies, the teaser trailer demonstrated a few magical abilities as the besieged figure fired off a handful of different spells to clear their path. Set 20 years after the events of the first game, Path of Exile 2 will feature a new 7-act campaign and will make some significant changes to the game engine, visuals, and gameplay. The developer has previously spoken about some of the updates that will be coming to Path of Exile 2, including the better bosses, a new skill gem system, and gorgeous graphics. And fans will be looking forward to learning more about the game in July, with hopefully a more in-depth look during ExileCon. Path of Exile has made it into many gamers' lists of top PC role-playing games, and it's enjoyed a dedicated fan base since its release, with a healthy list of expansions and updates across its lifespan. Plenty of people were excited for a sequel, and while the developer has taken its time releasing one, there's still a high level of hype for Path of Exile 2's launch. Inevitably, Path of Exile 2 is being compared to Diablo IV despite it not yet being out, as both are recognizable names in the fantasy RPG sphere. Path of Exile updated and reimagined many of the elements that were central to earlier Diablo installments, and players are hoping Path of Exile 2 can pull off a similar feat. While Path of Exile 2 might be looking to bring its own innovations to the genre, there are enough similarities with Diablo for that fans of one will likely enjoy the other. Both series have been known for their more hardcore approach to gaming, which could appeal to traditionalists and newcomers alike. Path of Exile 2's status as a free-to-play game also works in its favor, but the macabre visuals, darkly demonic vibe, and depth of character building in both should make for an interesting experience. Path of Exile 2's sheer amount of options when it comes to how players can shape their characters should match even Diablo IV's promise of greater customization, ensuring that both titles build on their foundational earlier entries in promising new ways. For those worried that the game might differentiate from the original too much, Path of Exile 2 will retain its core gameplay and economy. The compelling world of Rayclast and its dark lore will still be explodable at a player's will, even if 2 decades have passed. Grinding Gear Games also assured its community that any purchases from the first Path of Exile will be available to use in the free-to-play sequel. Of course, there is still plenty to learn about Path of Exile 2 since it's expected to release in 2024. More information will almost certainly be coming out July 29th to 30th at this year's ExileCon. Developer Starbreeze has finally revealed a slew of details about its upcoming heisting flagship, Payday 3. And fans of the franchise now have far better insight into the type of experience they ought to expect. Aside from revealing some gameplay footage and the game's September 2023 release window, Starbreeze has also gone on record about the game's monetization scheme and beyond. Up until now, Payday fans have known precious little about Starbreeze's all-new series entry. Payday 3's 2023 launch plans were known, granted, so it was just a matter of time until the developer finally decided to provide a more in-depth overview of what should be expected out of the game and whether it's going to follow a similar path as its predecessor, Payday 2. A new Payday 3 FAQ posted by Starbreeze has given more information about the upcoming game. On top of affirming previously known info, such as the game's New York setting, the FAQ also discusses its $39.99 price point, the Silver and Gold Season Pass offerings, and DLCs in general, which is a particularly important point of contention for the community. Specifically, the game will continue Payday 2's monetization scheme. Players can expect Heist, Tailor Pack, and Weapon Pack DLCs once again, and getting the Gold Season Pass simply unlocks access to the first year's worth of DLC, including 4 DLCs of each type. The Silver Season Pass, on the other hand, includes half as much content. On top of having 3 types of DLC, which may not sound like a notable improvement over Payday 2, the new game will also feature Payday credits, an all-new in-game currency that will be used to purchase extra cosmetic items which will not affect the gameplay, and will be introduced into Payday 3 sometime after the game comes out. The specifics of DLC balancing are yet to be seen, of course, but everything points to it being a very similar system to what was seen in the previous title, for better or for worse. The good news is that Payday 3 will have full crossplay across all platforms, and the game is being developed in Unreal Engine 4, solving many of the previous title's production woes. Since Starbreeze left its financial issues behind a few years back, the situation has been generally favorable for the studio, allowing it to go all in on Payday 3's modernized development process. Payday 3 isn't the only heist-based game due to launch in the near future, though. Haven Studios' Fair Games may yet steal Payday 3's thunder, depending on the game's niche and gameplay focus. Even with the considerable following that the Payday franchise has amassed over the years, Starbreeze should keep a close eye on its new competitor. After weeks of hints and teases, CD Projekt Red reveals a brand new trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty and finally gives it a firm launch date later this year. After one of the worst launches in video game history, Cyberpunk 2077 has seen a renaissance of sorts thanks to plenty of updates, which evolved and transformed the game into what the studio likely envisioned. The turnaround not only brought in more players, but strong word of mouth helped fuel CD Projekt Red's best financial quarter ever back in Q3 2022. The game's meteoric rise propelled CD Projekt Red to continue development within the franchise, confirming a sequel as well as a new expansion. Phantom Liberty was originally announced at the Game Awards 2022, revealing actor Idris Elba as a major character that players would be interacting with. As excited as fans were, CD Projekt Red soon went dark, opting to keep developer heads down instead of talking about the experience. Thankfully, it appears that development time has paid off as Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty finally has a launch date. During the Xbox Showcase event, Keanu Reeves once again took the stage to introduce the latest trailer for Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty. The footage provided a bit more context as to why V joins up with the president in a new location called Dogtown. With a promise to save V's life if they work with the NUSA to save the president, things quickly turn due to treason, betrayals, and espionage. With a race against the clock, V attempts to fulfill the mission with a little help from possible allies like Solomon Reed. The trailer also finally confirms the expansion's launch date, something which has been speculated about often by players. Thankfully, fans now know that they'll be able to jump back into Cyberpunk 2077 starting on September 26, 2023. Whilst the efforts to implement features the game did not first ship with, especially with the focus narrowed in on the Phantom Liberty DLC, fans undoubtedly will be calling for this addition to come alongside the aforementioned DLC's release. As it is known that plans for a third-person perspective were scrapped for a focus on first-person, this is the best chance developers have to reintroduce this to the game. Considering the fact that Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto franchise is the pinnacle of open-world true-to-life gaming experiences, the third-person perspective is often viewed as a prerequisite by many fans of the genre. With features such as character creation, clothing accessories, and body modifications, a third-person camera is essential to allow players to embody themselves within the characters present in the story. While it can be argued first-person does a better job of immersion in some cases, given the great level of detail in Cyberpunk to both the environment and the player's created character, the experience must expand outside the first-person view, aligning itself with what most players of open-world experiences are accustomed to. Speaking of character customization, CD Projekt Red has made this a pivotal part of the Cyberpunk 2077 experience, from the first moment players dive into the story creating their character, and the availability of body modifications and clothing accessories once in-game. Without the option of a third-person perspective and aside from the third-person camera while using vehicles, all of those features completely fall flat. Given the initial negative reputation and reception stemming from Cyberpunk 2077's buggy launch, it is no surprise that a plethora of players did not look to continue their playthroughs. While it has been an incredibly massive improvement over the period of time between its release and now, adding in third person alongside Phantom Liberty will give players who were first disappointed a greater incentive to return. As for players who had completed Cyberpunk 2077, a third-person perspective would stand as a completely different experience for them, not only because that is how CD Projekt Red first planned the game to stand with, but because if it does indeed happen, it will be completely reworked to fit the game's current mechanics. The playable demo of Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty that CD Projekt Red brought to Summer Game Fest 2023 confirmed a long-standing fan theory about the upcoming expansion. This development follows the premature start of Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty pre-orders, which suggested that the DLC's long-awaited release is on the horizon. Be that as it may, some gameplay footage from the demo still found its way online on June 9th, courtesy of GameStop's Instagram stories. And while the brief clip does not appear to show much at first glance, there's more than meets the eye in these few mundane seconds of V walking down a corridor. For starters, the footage confirms that Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty will bring V face-to-face with Rosalind Myers, as the objective to find the current NUSA president pops up on the screen near the end of the video. The original teaser for the DLC opened on a crashed Air Force One, but it has so far been unclear whether Myers was actually on board the plane while it was taken down. Secondly, the closed captions from the playable demo show that V is talking with someone named Songbird while going through the aircraft wreckage early on in the DLC story. This is significant because it adds to the credibility of Cyberpunk 2077's big DLC leak from mid-2022, which revealed some major story beats from the upcoming expansion and was the first piece of evidence suggesting Songbird will be one of Phantom Liberty's central characters. One final thing that can be gleaned from the footage of the SGF 2023 playable demo is a notable UI revamp that seems to be coming to CDPR's hit RPG. Namely, it would appear that the players will soon be able to map grenades and cyberware abilities to different buttons thanks to multiple quick slots that are clearly seen in the brief clip. As a result, the HUD is now always displaying the player's Sandevistan or OS hacking implant of choice, with the clip also revealing that phone and car button hints have been redesigned. It's plausible that these tweaks won't be exclusive to Phantom Liberty but instead debut as part of the Cyberpunk 2077 1.7 update. Seeing how CDPR previously confirmed that the said patch will incorporate a variety of quality-of-life changes. However, for those who don't wish to purchase the Cyberpunk 2077 DLC, there will still be some benefits to reap in the base game. In a recent interview with VGC, creative director Powell Sasko and quest designer Despoina Anataki said the team has been reworking some of the core main systems of the game in preparation for Phantom Liberty. This includes overhauling the AI, skills trees, as well as implementing vehicle combat. Sasko says that some of these features and tweaks will be making their way to the main game as well, adding that the core systems should be there. A variety of new weapons and modifications, and even melee finishing animations, can be expected as part of Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty DLC. While it is not certain which of these new weapons may be a part of the update, and thus available in the base game for free, and which might be exclusive to the DLC, the trailer did tease an extremely high-spec looking silenced pistol at the very least. While it seems little doubt that some weapons will be exclusive to the DLC, there could also be substantial additions to the variety and versatility of many different weapon types in the base game as well. Along with these, it also seems that a new mechanism has been added to enable players to perform new unique finishing animations when armed with melee weapons and fighting opponents whose health has dropped below a certain threshold. One of the most requested features in Cyberpunk 2077, which was largely omitted from the base game, was the inclusion of vehicle combat. While there were some scripted sequences in which players could fire from their vehicle as part of the game's main storyline, many players were left frustrated that this was not a core component of the game. Fortunately, it would seem that CDPR has addressed this in Phantom Liberty and a sequence showing players firing from their car, as well as rumors of vehicles that have weapons attached to them as part of their design, could serve as evidence. Another feature that was the subject of much criticism in Cyberpunk 2077's original release was the poorly implemented crime system and lack of realistic police Rather than simply spawning in a nearby location, it would seem that with Phantom Liberty, CDPR has completely overhauled the policing system and added a wanted level mechanic which will increase depending on the player's crimes. From singular officers on motorcycles right the way up to armored max TAC units. It would seem that this issue is finally being addressed in full, which makes sense given that the primary focus of the DLC story appears to be a political one and should feature many different types of police units. The Night City Police Department is always present in the game but is mostly divorced from the main storylines. Some of Cyberpunk 2077's best side quests involve the NCPD, and even in these quests, they aren't really an enemy. This is something that Phantom Liberty can correct. It is probably safe to assume that Night City's government and the NCPD probably don't know the FIA is operating within the city's borders. Even if they do, they're likely not doing anything with the permission of the local government, which can and will cause problems. This, in turn, could make the NCPD a major obstacle for V and their allies to overcome. The exact nature of this obstacle could take several forms. It could be a scripted sequence where the characters have a big shootout with the police. Perhaps a local captain will give Solomon Reed and V some kind of grief about jurisdiction and how they've overextended their reach. It could also be that whatever law does exist in this section of the city is aligned with whatever gangs and militia groups rule the area. One of the more mysterious and intriguing aspects of the new Phantom Liberty trailer is the introduction of the character, Songbird. While it is not clear exactly what role she might play in the overall narrative, it is mentioned that she offers V a cure for their terminal illness, which could have massive implications for the outcome of the game's story. Much like Johnny Silverhand, Songbird appears to exist in a slightly different dimension than normal and is surrounded by digital static similar to Keanu Reeves' character of Johnny Silverhand. While she may appear to be an ally, it is hinted that there could be an element of broken promises or betrayal given V's dialogue in the trailer. It is also possible that players might get to determine their outcomes regarding their relationship with Songbird in similar ways to other characters in the game. Either way, Songbird is already an intriguing character and is likely to play a central role in the upcoming DLC. While many Cyberpunk 2077 players will be familiar with Atom Smasher, there is a surprising absence of mech characters in a world so dominated by robotics and transhumanism. It would seem that at least one gigantic, spider-like mech boss will be featured as part of the expansion, though whether players will have to face it or simply escape it is unclear for now. This giant robot is shown to have a giant destructive laser beam and appears to be pursuing both V and the fleeing president. This sort of cinematic gameplay was one of the original game's strongest features, so players can be sure to expect some breathtaking cinematics and environmental storytelling. Whatever the case may be, Phantom Liberty looks to be more spectacular, intense, and intriguing with every further tease. The cost of using too many cyber upgrades is a major part of Cyberpunk's lore, and one of Cyberpunk 2077's side quests has protagonist V track down various cyber psychos on behalf of Regina Jones. However, V themselves is never negatively affected by whatever cyberware the player chooses to equip in Cyberpunk 2077. Many players have added cyberpsychosis to the game through mods, but the base Cyberpunk 2077 seemingly lets players chrome V up from head to toe without any consequences, even with cyberpsychos being a recurring threat in the world around them. That is going to change once Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty launches this September. In a recent interview with VGC, creative director Powell Sasko revealed that several of Cyberpunk 2077's core mechanics are being overhauled, and a new risk system is being implemented for cyberware. While this system isn't quite the same as cyberpsychosis, Sasko says that players will only be able to equip so much cyberware at a time. A new Edge Runner's perk will allow V to surpass this limit, but at the cost of penalties like health debuffs. During the interview, Sasko explained that this system is all about this balance between risk and reward. The plot of the upcoming DLC is still shrouded in mystery. The second trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty did provide more clues as to what is going on in the story, such as the plot itself seeming to revolve around a previously closed-off section of Night City's map known as Dogtown, as well as the new United States of America organization known as the FIA. Phantom Liberty will rebuild gameplay from the ground up. The ambitious demo showed during the Summer Game Fest 2023 has certainly sparked plenty of excitement both within the Cyberpunk 2077 community. An image of the new talent tree system coming to Cyberpunk 2077 was procured from Dave Oshry's Twitter account, the CEO of New Blood Interactive, who got to play Phantom Liberty early. It was posted on the game's official subreddit by Jordgoin, where the image was positively received by a fandom that can't wait to get its hands on the definitive edition of Cyberpunk 2077. Assault, handguns, and blades were consolidated and streamlined, as the talent system now properly resembles a skill tree rather than a skill bush. The new system features primary nodes, secondary nodes, and ultimate nodes along each skill category. Though purely in the realm of speculation, primary nodes likely represent skills or talents that Cyberpunk 2077 characters can specialize in, while secondary nodes provide passive bonuses to augment them. The ultimate nodes found at the top of the tree seem to be reserved for game-changers such as Deathbolt. Another feature that Phantom Liberty is adding to Cyberpunk 2077 is cyberpsychosis, as players will now have to make careful decisions on how to augment themselves with cyberware. Given the major changes coming to Cyberpunk 2077 in Phantom Liberty, it is recommended for players to start over to enjoy the full experience. Though Update 1.7 will include the gameplay overhaul for free, fans who purchase Phantom Liberty will unlock a new ending for Cyberpunk 2077. Whatever mission V is on for the Nusa apparently goes very wrong, and the trailer implies that the characters will have to fight their way out of the section of the city. What currently is unclear about the DLC is who the main antagonist will be. Based on the trailers, it appears that local gangs and militia groups will likely be V's biggest obstacle in the game. Idris Elba's Solomon Reed can't necessarily be trusted and could very well end up as one of the game's final antagonists as well. However, a potential wild card antagonist that the game has rarely used so far could be one of the better options. That wild card antagonist is the Night City Police Department. A recent interview with WCCF Tech, CDPR spoke about the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077 content, diving into such details as the full scope of the expansion and why the team picked Elba. Game director and VP Gabe Mattangelo also spoke about where Phantom Liberty will take place in terms of the main game, confirming that the new story will occur in the midst of it. Mattangelo goes on to say that the new content will have different endings based on what happens during the story, and adds that, depending on how the DLC ends, it's possible to unlock a new ending for the base game. Obviously, the director doesn't go into detail about what this ending, or any of the others, will entail, but it suggests that CD Projekt Red is not leaving Night City behind entirely. Though Cyberpunk 2077 has gotten numerous improvements and upgrades over the past couple of years, the Phantom Liberty DLC appears to come with the single biggest batch of changes yet. There's an absolute dedication to what's needed to be done to make it right, Mattangelo said to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier. Initially, there were plans to develop at least 2 major DLCs for Cyberpunk 2077, but these got revised into the singular Phantom Liberty package, which is due to come out late in September 2023. Mattangelo's team has been given carte blanche to get Phantom Liberty up to spec so that it will deliver on as many fronts as possible. And the director said that he was struck by the CDPR board's humility and willingness to change. As CD Projekt Red fans and early Cyberpunk 2077 players understand, the game launched with significant performance issues on PC. These issues cannot be attributed to Cyberpunk 2077's PC requirements, by any means. But it's certainly possible that CD Projekt Red set its targets for PC hardware that should never have been recommended for the game. For example, the minimum PC requirements included an Intel Core i5-3570K, 8GB of RAM, a GTX 970 with 3GB of VRAM, and a 70GB HDD. The updated PC requirements for Cyberpunk 2077 take some rather substantial steps forward compared to the prior requirements. To start, CD Projekt Red has clarified that the minimum specifications still are focused on 1080p resolution, but now explicitly state that it also targets 30 frames per second. Requirements for these minimums are now an i7-6700/Ryzen 5 1600 CPU, a GeForce GTX 1060GB per Radeon RX 588GB per ARC A380, 12GB of RAM, and most notably 70GB of space on an SSD drive. Hard drives are no longer recommended. For comparison, the requirements for playing Cyberpunk 2077 on Ultra settings have also increased. The Play the game at 60 frames per second, 2160p resolution. With ultra settings, players are recommended to have a Core i9-12900/Ryzen 9 7900X CPU, GeForce RTX 3080/Radeon RX 7900 XTX GPU, 12GB of VRAM, 20GB of RAM, and an NVMe storage device. That's not the peak Cyberpunk 2077 experience, though. The RT Overdrive Cyberpunk 2077 recommendations up requirements to a GeForce RTX 4080 GPU, and 16GB of VRAM, 24GB of RAM. The updated requirements for Cyberpunk 2077 are based on CD Projekt Red's internal testing. It's important to state that these are recommended configurations and are not hard minimums. Cyberpunk 2077 won't stop working on hardware based on previous minimum requirements, though performance may vary. Cyberpunk 2077's new PC system requirements will go into effect with the release of the game's next update, which won't arrive for at least another 90 days. The changes will apply both to the base Cyberpunk 2077 game and to Phantom Liberty when it launches on September 26. They will hopefully create better expectations regarding the performance of Cyberpunk 2077, and CD Projekt Red will hopefully meet those expectations this time around. Cyberpunk 2077 had a tumultuous development cycle that ultimately led to multiple key members of the team leaving CD Projekt Red entirely. That includes both Mateusz Kanik, Konrad Tomaskiewicz, and Mateusz Tomaskiewicz, who each played key directorial roles in Cyberpunk 2077's development. Even Cyberpunk 2077's game director through launch ultimately stepped down from continued support of the project, as Adam Badowski instead became CD Projekt Red's studio head. Gabe Amatangelo took on Cyberpunk 2077's continued direction in 2021, just a year after being hired by CD Projekt Red. Now Amatangelo is firmly entrenched as the director of Cyberpunk 2077's future at CD Projekt Red. Speaking with Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, Amatangelo now says that he will be directing the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077, which was announced in October 2022. All that's been said about the sequel is that its codename is Project Orion and CD Projekt Red will be building it on Unreal Engine 5. Needless to say, the sequel will require a tremendous amount of work and is years away from being properly revealed. As for how Amatangelo became the lead of Cyberpunk 2077's future at CD Projekt Red, it starts at the game's state of development in 2020. Amatangelo is an industry veteran, spending 10 years at EA between Mythic Entertainment and BioWare, followed by 4 years as QC Games as game director and co-founder. In 2020, when Cyberpunk 2077 development was floundering, Amatangelo was brought on as creative director to help the team refocus. He'd shown the experience necessary to become Cyberpunk 2077's new game director when Badowski stepped down in 2021. Phantom Liberty's development since Amatangelo took over appears to have proven the new game director's worth in the years since. The DLC launches in September and will overhaul Cyberpunk 2077 entirely. It's taken over 3 years, but fans are excited about Cyberpunk 2077 again. Phantom Liberty isn't even out and no reviews have been written, but CD Projekt Red appears confident in Amatangelo's work. Amatangelo appears to be very happy with the situation, too. He notes to Bloomberg that CD Projekt's board gave the team all the time and resources it needed to make it right. That doesn't only mean making Cyberpunk 2077 a better game, though. Amatangelo says he's worked to improve CD Projekt Red's culture, too. He says Phantom Liberty has been developed without crunch. And that developers now have a very healthy work-life balance. The sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 will hopefully maintain that throughout its development. One of the more unexpected reveals from the recent Xbox showcase was Inshila's new genre-bending steampunk FPS Clockwork Revolution. The title already looks like a significant departure from Inshila's previous work, with a clear line of inspiration drawn from BioShock Infinite in both its setting and visual presentation. Inshila has long proven itself to be a capable developer and has been consistently producing quality RPGs for years. So to see them pivot into a narrative-driven first-person shooter like BioShock or Dishonored is an interesting premise that's rife with opportunity for the developer to introduce mechanics from its best title to date, Wasteland 3. Wasteland 3 continued a rich tradition of Western RPGs that use the choices made by the player to shape the world they inhabit in-game. Titles like Mass Effect, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and even BioShock have found clever ways to incorporate player choice toward having a long-lasting impact in how certain plot points unfold or affect the way other characters react to the player. The original Wasteland was famous for how important and impactful player choice was in affecting the game's outcome, and Wasteland 3 is no different. The debut trailer for Clockwork Revolution from the Xbox showcase hinted at a time travel component to the game, showing the game's city of Avalon in either separate timelines or before and after a temporal disruption. Narration during the trailer also indicates that the player is being hunted, and the bounty on their heads may be a result of using time travel to disrupt the current timeline. Already, Clockwork Revolution looks to continue the tradition of impactful choice from Wasteland 3, with every action of the player potentially having far-reaching consequences and creating branching realities. As a squad-based tactical RPG, Wasteland 3's combat was highly regarded as some of the best in the genre, along with other CRPGs like Divinity Original Sin 2. Players were given nearly limitless freedom in how they crafted their dream party and used their various skills to approach a variety of combat scenarios. Players who got creative with their Wasteland 3 builds and party compositions could find themselves immensely capable of dispatching foes using either conventional or unconventional methods. Inshila's skill at providing players with a litany of options to choose from in how they craft out their build should absolutely make a return in Clockwork Revolution. In addition to its visual aesthetic, here again is where Clockwork Revolution could see similarities drawn between itself and BioShock thanks to that game's similar freedom in how players crafted their character and allotted skills. In order to clearly differentiate itself from BioShock and stand out from a whole host of BioShock-likes, Clockwork Revolution should fully lean into the idea of granting the player the same kind of freedom in their character build as was found in Wasteland 3. Inshila has been steadily growing in scope as a studio, consistently putting out quality titles that have seen it grow and expand. Clockwork Revolution looks to be its most ambitious title to date, and it has a chance to stand out among the crowd by borrowing heavily from its developers' previous titles. The game also appears to feature political themes, meaning possibly different factions and ideologies to choose from, similar to the way in which players were able to shape the outcome of the game world in Dying Light 2. It appears that the player's choices will have visible and lasting effects on the world around them. It is not entirely clear when the game will release, with the trailer merely teasing that the game will be ready in due course. The most immediately striking and unique aspect of Clockwork Revolution's reveal trailer was the incredibly rich and detailed steampunk setting. From mechanical birds and performing automatons to zeppelins and cabaret joints, everything about the game's apparent setting of Avalon seems to be a uniform depiction of a world in which the age of invention really accelerated at full steam. Cobblestone and brickwork still make up the majority of the buildings with a distinctly industrial atmosphere, while gold trimmings and fancy signs are an indication of wealth and prosperity, perhaps hinting at a further divide to come, since after all it is called Clockwork Revolution. Players can expect to see plenty of top hats and gramophones on the streets of Avalon, and steam-powered monorails. Drone-like devices and mechanical soldiers also feature heavily throughout the trailer, piecing together what promises to be a highly immersive and memorable setting for the game. Weapons appear to be a complex mix of steampunk technology in late 19th century weapons such as revolvers, lever-action repeaters, and modified Gatling guns. Much of the reveal trailer's emphasis centers around the changing environment, with fast-cut edits showing the city seemingly before and after certain key decisions have been made. On one hand is the initial utopian vision presented from the start, while the other depicts a darker world, seemingly destroyed and overrun with anarchy or tyranny, which will surely be central to the game's main story. It is implied that the time travel element will largely shape this, and it will be interesting to see how this area of the game develops over time. It seems that, at least in some part, the surrounding environment may be destructible with weaponry, too, since a clip shows a powerful-looking gun destroying a bridge before subsequently reversing the process. Whether or not there are any magical elements to the game remains to be seen, but certainly there is some level of supernatural ability within the game. Likewise, a clip also shows an enemy being thrown into some sort of propeller, suggesting that the environment could also feature heavily as an aspect of combat, too. Another prominent feature throughout the trailer were the themes of tyranny and authoritarianism. For a start, the monologue appears to have been voiced by an in-game character, a matriarchal ruler of some kind, talking about how order must be kept and how a single rebellious little gear can ruin everything. She also vows to seek out and destroy any such threat, with the realms of space and time being little to obstacles to her power, and it is suggested that she may be in possession of a time machine. It seems quite likely that players will have a hand in the coming revolution, and there are political posters and graffiti throughout the city to suggest this further. Different banners adorn buildings to represent rivaling factions, while NPCs can be seen gathering in protest. It certainly makes for an interesting and dynamic game world to become immersed in, and it seems that player choices could have a massive impact in shaping the fate of Avalon and its citizens. Perhaps the most unique aspect in terms of gameplay mechanics revealed in the trailer was the inclusion of time travel. It seems to be quite a chief concern of the society, or at least the ruling hierarchy, that this time manipulation device or technology is kept under control, but clearly the player will have access to this somehow. As well as destroying and repairing environments, it seems that certain combat abilities might also be able to make use of this. It would seem, therefore, that both on a micro and macro level, these temporal shifting technologies will play a central role. And given the studio's history of producing interesting and complex gameplay mechanics, it is this feature that many players are most excited about. Although we were only able to see a brief, 2-minute glimpse into what Clockwork Revolution has to offer, it certainly looks promising. And many gamers are highly anticipating what is to come in the future. This is one of the titles that excited me during the Xbox showcase. Aside from a handful of preceding rumors, Fable first manifested at the Xbox Games Showcase in July 2020 with a CGI trailer showing off a magical kingdom, a fairy, a sword, and a toad. Fans have been anticipating seeing it again, especially at 2023's Xbox Games Showcase, which promised no first-party CGI trailers. Its appearance there would mark its first major showcase in 3 years, so many had their fingers crossed. In fact, fans had good reason to expect it to be there. A recent social media post advertising the showcase saw someone sprinkle tons of glitter across their carpeted floors, leading up to a monitor with the Xbox Games Showcase. Not only would it make no sense to ruin, for years potentially, one's home for anything less than the Fable reboot, but the glitter trail plus music were obvious throwbacks to the game. Luckily, many fans got to cross the Fable reboot off their wish list. The Fable trailer begins with commentary on heroes and what defines them, calling the age of heroes over and that they now live in an age of innovation. Mysterious character narrates, while spotting a hero that is very small, revealing that character to be a giant of sorts. It ends with an F-bomb teaser before showcasing the Fable logo and a suggestion that the hero has slain the giant. Nearly 13 years after the series' last mainline entry, Fable was fully revealed at this week's Xbox showcase. While the game is the 4th mainline entry in the series, Fable's Xbox showcase trailer confirms the title is a full series reboot. Many fans were surprised when the trailer aired, as its first half consisted of a short monologue about heroism and the importance of vegetables, before pulling back the curtain on a Fable entry unlike any other. As the speaker, played by Richard Ayoade, continues to monologue, his segment is intercut with clips featuring a young female hero, until, near the trailer's conclusion, their segments collide. Given what's in the trailer, Fable seems to stay true to its roots, invoking the core characteristics of the mythical tales on which it's based. There were a variety of rumors surrounding Fable, prior to its official reveal, but none could have predicted the reveals in this week's gameplay trailer. When the intermittent scenes of Richard Ayoade and the young hero collide, it is revealed that the former is actually a giant. Discovering the young hero sneaking through his home, the giant confronts her, ushering in a shared awkward moment. However, Ayoade cuts the silence with a sudden attack, initiating a tense and cinematic action sequence. The giant eventually catches the hero, before the trailer cuts to its title card. Fable seems like a massive departure from recent entries, realigning the series with the mythical fairy tales that inspired it. In addition to its gigantic narrator and main protagonist, the game's trailer features fairies, abandoned towers, a beanstalk, and what appears to be a werewolf. The Fable series' previous entries were renowned for their narrative-shifting morality system and cheeky sense of humor. While Fable appears to maintain the latter, the title's gameplay, world, and storytelling seem to have been realigned with those of classic fairy tale adventures. Fable has a massive weight on its shoulders, as fans have waited over a decade for the title's release. Many fans were unimpressed with Fable 3, which moved away from a traditional RPG system. With Fable promising to reboot the series for modern audiences, the title has to balance the old and new while carving its unique path. Fable is sure to break new ground in a variety of areas, and this week's presentation is likely just the tip of the iceberg, as many staple features of the series have yet to be detailed. Romance, morality, and morphing systems all played a significant role in the Fable series' unique identity. While none of these have been revealed for Fable, it's extremely likely that future presentations will reveal their role in the series reboot. Fans of the Fable series are buzzing, following this week's trailer, and with plenty still left to reveal, Fable is shaping up to be one of the highlights of the show. One of the first games announced during the presentation was South of Midnight, a stunning title with southern themes. Developed by the Montreal-based studio Compulsion Games, it seems like a promising new original experience from the team behind We Happy Few. The cinematic reveal trailer hinted at the tone and story, but no actual gameplay was shown off during the Xbox Games showcase. So it may be a little while more before players learn exactly what kind of game South of Midnight really is. However, one notable aspect of the game was on display, that being the dazzling art style which bears a striking resemblance to a popular film series currently dominating the animation scene. Animated feature films have been around for decades and have gone through multiple evolutionary shifts over the years. Disney broke new ground with its traditional 2D animation. The stop-motion of Wallace and Gromit added another new style to the mix, and Pixar's Toy Story revolutionized 3D animation in the mid-90s. In 2018, however, a completely new visual look emerged in Sony and Marvel's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The movie looked exactly like the pages of a Marvel comic book come to life, with the action and colors within any individual panel jumping off the page in brilliant fashion. The look of the movie was simultaneously a love letter to almost every style of animation utilized over the last several decades. Shifting a common expression into a new form, Into the Spider-Verse was actually a jack of all trades and a master of each, perfectly taking advantage of 2D, stop-motion, 3D, and more to craft its incredible animated world. It has proven to be such an amazing new style that another franchise has adopted it as well, with the upcoming film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem employing the same visual tactics. Although this animation technique used in Into the Spider-Verse, and its acclaimed sequel Across the Spider-Verse has largely remained in the film scene, it seems to now be seeping over into video games as well. Despite South of Midnight not showing off a shred of actual gameplay in its world premiere trailer, it's safe to assume that showing off a similar visual look to Into the Spider-Verse implies that this is what the game will look like in action as well. This is an exciting prospect, as Into the Spider-Verse animation style is all the rage right now and still feels incredibly fresh. Being only a few years old, it still feels like there is so much possibility that can be tapped into on both a technical and creative level with this art style. Now, by shifting into the realm of video games, more doors are being opened for how to depict this style to a player. Whether South of Midnight ends up being first or third person remains to be seen. Simply viewing Into the Spider-Verse and all of its colorful glory is one thing, but being able to actively participate in a world with a similar look and feel is a compelling concept. It's a very ambitious undertaking, but Compulsion Games has already proven itself with the aforementioned We Happy Few. So hopefully it isn't too much longer for players to be able to see what the game looks like in action. Bethesda finally showed off Starfield in massive details at the Starfield Direct. The recent Starfield Direct presentation confirmed 5 new companions for open-world sci-fi RPG Starfield, along with the game's romance options. Like past Bethesda games, Starfield will allow players to recruit companions to accompany them on their adventures. However, Starfield is taking the companion system to the next level, allowing players to organize an entire crew for their spaceship. Bethesda has revealed a couple of Starfield companions with previous looks at the game, revealing robot companion Vasco and the return of the fan of the Elder Scrolls for Oblivion fame. However, there will be many more companions for Starfield players to recruit, all of which are bringing unique abilities to the table. The Starfield companions revealed in the Starfield Direct presentation include Sarah Morgan, who specializes in astrodynamics, lasers, leadership, and botany. Sam Coe, a space cowboy who specializes in piloting rifle certification, payloads, and geology. Barrett, who specializes in starship engineering, particle beam weapon systems, robotics, and gastronomy. Marika Boros, who specializes in shotgun certification, ballistics, and particle beam weapon systems, and finally, Heller, who specializes in geology and outpost engineering. Starfield players will be able to meet these companions through a variety of means during their adventures. Some of them will be met through quest progression, others can be found at spaceports and hired as crew mates. Others still will be found on one of Starfield's thousands of planets. It's unclear what the cap is on how many companions one can have in Starfield or what limitations there may be to exploring with companions. But more of those details should come to light as we get closer to the game's release date. In the footage, it was revealed that Vasco will actually be able to say the player's name during the playthrough. The long-awaited Starfield gameplay deep dive has finally been unveiled, and its ship customization and interstellar combat have been a highlight in its 40-minute presentation. Starfield has been in development for over 7 years, and after a string of delays pushed its release all the way to September 2023, Microsoft is finally ready to show what the team cooked up. Very much described as a traditional Bethesda title, it is an open-world experience that puts the players into the role of galactic explorers. Comparable to Skyrim and Fallout 4, it is the next evolution of the Bethesda sandbox, as fans will be able to take flight in fully customizable ships and explore the dark corners of space. Starfield will feature over 1,000 planets for players to immerse themselves in, as the developers at Bethesda have created new tech to bring their ambitious dream to reality. Yet outside the unique, handcrafted landscapes that await on the many worlds of Starfield, space itself is being treated with the same amount of detail and reverence. Players will be able to explore it on a ship of their own, and will be able to take direct command from the cockpit. The ship customization in Starfield is truly modular, as fans will be able to shape, color, and assemble their vessel in whatever way they desire. Different manufacturers will feature different interior styles, and an unrestricted color wheel will allow players to give their ship the right coat of paint. At the 20-minute mark of the deep dive video, Bethesda showed how complex and freeform ship customization could go. And even featured some of the developers' personal designs, such as a colorful mech or a platypus. In addition to customizing the exterior and interior modules of their ship, players will also be able to hire companions and crewmates in Starfield to maintain their vessel. Discovered throughout their adventure, and likely through many of the game's factions, these NPCs will help liven up the ship's quarters in an immersive way. However, the vast reaches of space won't be without their fair share of dangers, as players will often engage in interstellar combat. Whether hostile ships are warping into view, or players are choosing to engage in piracy. The ship combat in Starfield will allow players to not only turn the enemy vessels into scrap, while looting them from the comforts of their cockpit, but also directly dock and seize the ship on the ground. Doing so will allow Starfield players to not only capture the vessel, but also add it to their own personal fleet. In true sci-fi fashion, fans will also have to be strategic about their energy spending during space exploration, as the ship will only be able to focus on laser, engines, gravity, or shields based on the amount of power left unallocated. Though there is plenty to be excited about when it comes to space flight in Starfield, it is but one pillar of its gameplay. During Starfield's extensive gameplay deep dive, Bethesda's senior-level designer, Zachary Wilson, directly states that Starfield's ship combat isn't just hitting your triggers to fire your weapons, but a complex dance, and that certainly seems to be the case. When engaging in ship combat in Starfield, players will have to micromanage the ship's various systems, including its weapons, shields, engines, and gravity drive. And if the player has multiple types of weapons on their ship, they'll have to manage each individual weapon type, such as lasers and missiles. While in combat in Starfield, players will have a certain amount of power, presumably determined by their reactor type. And they'll have to manually decide how much energy goes into each of these systems. Putting more energy into weapons will result in more concentrated bursts that deal more damage per hit. Ramping up the shields will mean that the ship is more protected. Increasing the power of the engines will give the ship a speed boost and improve maneuverability. And siphoning energy into the gravity drive will decrease the amount of time needed to blast out of the system, which will no doubt lead to some intense near-death moments. But with Starfield being an expansive RPG, there's even more to ship combat than that. Starfield features an impressive skill system, boasting 5 separate skill trees, each with at least 16 different skills in them. One of the tech skill tree's abilities gives players the ability to target specific systems on an enemy ship. Similar to Fallout's VAT system, this skill allows players to directly target an enemy's weapons, engines, shields, or gravity drive, giving ship combat a lot more strategy. It seems likely that there'll be at least a few more skills related to ship combat like this in Starfield. Based on everything fans have seen so far, it seems as though Starfield is striking the perfect balance between arcade and space sim gameplay. For those wanting to just jump into Starfield and mainly experience ground combat, they probably won't need to engage in all of these complex ship combat systems. But for those that desire a more space sim-like experience, then there's quite a bit of depth here, and that's just from what's been revealed so far. And for those that really want to live out their deepest sci-fi fantasies, Starfield's ship customization is offering all the depth they could ever want from a sci-fi RPG. With each individual module of the ship being completely customizable and upgradable, which will also undoubtedly affect ship combat. Starfield blows Bethesda's catalog of open-world games out of the water as it brings the studio's RPG formula to much wider pastures. Starfield will feature over 1,000 explorable planets across 100 systems, with this being a huge point of pride for the scope of the experience. The Direct argued that Starfield's planets will foster a huge variety of exploration, factions, storylines, and NPCs. Naturally, some planets will be of greater importance than others, being massive central hubs of the game's core narrative and experiences. A fair criticism of this planetary range is how some planets may inevitably feel barren and insignificant due to the sheer number of them. This partly ties into the procedural generation of the game, in which many planets will be randomly generated for each playthrough. These kinds of planets will have random but sensible atmospheres, terrain, and resources, but will be still populated with pre-designed structures and events. With there being many potential pitfalls to using procedural generation in what is billed to be such an immersive title. Bethesda's ethos behind its use may be the golden standard for future games of a comparable scale. The Starfield Direct gave fans an impression of when Starfield chooses to wield procedurally generated planets. It appears that the technology will primarily be used for many outlier planets that the player may visit through extended exploration of the game's systems. This procedural generation will not be used on the title's most important locations, giving players a uniform experience of Starfield's most memorable planets. For example, one of the first planets that Starfield showcased was Jemison, one of the integral locations of the Alpha Centauri system. As one of the first systems the player will come into contact with, it is clear to see that many of its involved planets will hold deep narrative importance. Jemison is home to the main headquarters of New Atlantis, the capital city of the United Colonies faction. This planet will not be procedurally generated, avoiding any unintended structural issues or immersion-breaking bugs that may arise from such generation. Procedurally generated planets will instead be integral to side content, being a great way to personalize a person's playthrough with unique locations. Games either tend to go all in or nothing at all when it comes to procedural generation, and Starfield is boldly aiming to create an equal blend of procedural and scripted content. The coexistence of handcrafted planets and their procedurally generated counterparts will ensure that the entire player base will get the same core narrative feeling of the game, while allowing for more personal and unpredictable moments as well. If this blend of environmental storytelling is to be as positive as it appears, then Starfield may set the tone for procedural generation in gaming moving forward. Over the course of 45 minutes, a variety of Bethesda devs took to the screen to break down each of the game's core systems in quite a bit of detail, from Starfield's ship combat to its character creator, to its ground combat, to its open world, to its dialogue options, and just about everything else fans can expect to see in September. And while almost every one of these systems takes a classic Bethesda feature and improves on it, nowhere is that more true than Starfield's skill system. Upon starting up Starfield for the very first time, players will enter Bethesda's brand new, state-of-the-art character creator. After spending some time perfecting every single detail, players will then be prompted to give their character a background. These backgrounds will give the player's character a general base for their adventure, allowing NPCs to react in unique ways depending on what the character had been doing before the events of the game. For instance, if the player chooses the Beast Hunter background, they might be given unique quests later on in the game that task them with hunting down some alien wildlife. But the most integral aspect of Starfield's backgrounds is that each one grants the player 3 skills to start with, all related to their chosen origin. After that, players will earn a new skill point once per level up. There are a total of 5 skill trees in Starfield, each of which specializes in a certain field. These 5 skill trees are categorized as physical, social, combat, science, and tech. Each skill tree has at least 15 separate skills, each of which grants the player a unique ability or trait, just like any other Bethesda RPG. But what's different this time around is that each skill has a unique upgrade path. After unlocking one of Starfield's skills, players will then be able to access that skill's rank system. This is essentially a linear upgrade path that lets players increase the effectiveness of the skill. For instance, the base version of the Intimidation skill will make enemy NPCs flee a battle if they are at a lower level than the player. But if the player has reached rank 2 on the Intimidation tree, then a target NPC of up to 10 levels higher than the player will flee. To level up one of Starfield's skills to the next rank, players will need to complete a specific in-game challenge. For the aforementioned Intimidation skill, all players need to do is eliminate a certain number of enemies in Starfield's combat. For the Security skill, which allows players to attempt to hack advanced locks, players simply need to pick a certain number of locks to unlock its subsequent ranks. Each of Starfield's skills has 4 individual ranks, giving players a lot of challenges to complete, and a lot of rewards to strive for. The skill system and talents in Starfield are visually represented by uniform patches, and allow players to build their characters from a set of different physical, social, combat, science, or tech skills to suit their playstyle. Each category has several rows of subcategories, and each skill has ranks that players can unlock through completing the corresponding challenges. From picking locks to intimidating enemies to crafting chems at a research lab, it's a full Bethesda experience set in space that fans are endearing, calling it No Man's Skyrim. However, the most intriguing part of the talent tree shown in the Starfield deep dive concerns the Xenosociology skill, which will allow players to mind control alien creatures and turn them docile. Though the scope and duration of the mind control is yet to be understood, the demonstration made it seem like an extremely useful skill to have when out exploring the wilderness. Starfield will have over 1,000 planets, filled to the brim with handmade details and unique locations for players to explore, and not all the fauna will be friendly. The gameplay of Starfield will combine a completely revamped gunplay familiar to Fallout players, with all sorts of tech and gadgets, such as being able to manipulate gravity in combat, hover in the air with a boost pack, or blow up an entire group of enemies with all sorts of explosives. It will feature a wide variety of weapons, fully customizable with an equally ambitious set of mods. If Starfield delivers on its ambitious promises, its combat is sure to delight fans of the Fallout franchise, as well as any player who loves first-person shooters. Although it didn't play a major role in and of itself throughout the direct showcase, Bethesda has confirmed that Starfield's first post-launch expansion will be called Shattered Space. Indeed, it's a small blink-and-you-miss-it detail, which the direct was filled with. After all, it showed off Starfield's various planets and cities, gunplay, skills, companions, ship customization, and much, much more. While fans were prepared for Starfield to end the showcase, it seems clear that it did its job. Hype for the game was alright high, but it seems much bigger now with the vast freedom Bethesda has on offer with the game. It's something fans can easily expect to sink hundreds of hours into, and post-launch expansions are only going to help that. Starfield's first major expansion is called Shattered Space, and while fans don't know what it entails yet, and likely won't until after launch, it does have some potential horror vibes. The naming along is reminiscent of Dead Space. Either way, fans got their glimpse of this when the Constellation edition of Starfield was shown off. Overall, it's hard to speculate as to what Shattered Space could entail. There's so much to the game that it would obviously be feature complete at launch, but as a story DLC, fans can expect said story to keep expanding. Based on what was seen today, it seems players link up with Constellation after encountering an artifact that seems to speak with them. It could be that, while aliens don't play an immediate role in Starfield, finding this ancient alien race might. In that way, it almost seems like Mass Effect, but it could be that Shattered Space expands on that. Of course, it could be anything else just as easily. For many fans, Starfield's September 6th release date can't come soon enough. Luckily, those that absolutely can't wait to play the game on September 6th have the option of getting the Starfield Premium Edition for $100 or the Premium Edition upgrade for $35, bringing the total to about $105 for those that go that route. The Starfield Premium Edition comes with the Shattered Space DLC, Constellation Skin Pack, a digital art book, and the game's soundtrack. While those getting it physically can also get a steelbook display case and a Constellation patch. And of course, it also comes with up to 5 days early access, meaning fans can jump in on September 1st instead of September 6th. Those that plan on playing Starfield through Xbox Game Pass should note that they don't have to spring for the $100 version of the game to get early access. That Xbox Game Pass subscribers will have the chance to download Starfield early and then purchase the $35 premium upgrade to play on September 1st with all the other early access players. Those that can hold out until September 6th won't have to pay anything beyond their usual Game Pass subscription fee. Starfield sales are already strong, and it will be interesting to see how many wind up getting the premium edition of the game over the base version. The Starfield-themed gadgets have been one of Bethesda's worst-kept secrets over the past few months, having leaked on multiple occasions throughout spring. Both the controller and Starfield Xbox headset even hit some retailers in the run-up to their June 11th announcement. So their unveilings likely didn't come as a surprise to fans keeping up with the game's news cycle. As for the FFVII Chronomark watch, that Starfield collector's item leaked alongside its user manual all the way back in early 2022. Today's announcement confirmed that the watch will only be available as part of the game's Constellation Edition, which is priced at $300. The bundle also includes a watch case, a patch with the logo of the game's Constellation faction, and a steelbook display case with nothing to put in it. Namely, the collector's edition of Starfield will only ship with a download code instead of a physical copy of the game. Meanwhile, the Starfield controller and headset are already available for purchase from Microsoft, priced at $80 and $125, respectively. The FFVII Chronomark watch appears to be a like-for-like recreation of the wristwatch that Starfield players will use in the game. And though the timepiece has some basic smartwatch functionality like the ability to relay notifications from a phone, it also comes with a lengthy list of disclaimers stating that the device doesn't have a touchscreen, doesn't support cellular service, and cannot transmit phone calls. The FFVII part of its moniker also shouldn't be confused with an IP rating, as there's no indication that the gadget's casing is in any way protected from the elements. The timepiece itself is made by the Wand Company, a British manufacturer known for creating premium props like Pokeballs and Star Trek communicators, which inspires confidence in its build quality. And while the FFVII Chronomark watch likely won't offer much value beyond being a collector's item, that's not to say Bethesda will have any issues selling out the Constellation Edition of Starfield, one of the most anticipated AAA games of 2023. While discussing many things that make Starfield stand out in comparison to Fallout and Skyrim, Howard revealed just how much work Bethesda made to expand player freedom and creativity. According to Howard, Starfield is like 5 or 6 games in one, noting the spaceship simulation, ground travel, dialogue system, outpost building, and crafting elements of the game that come together in one package. Not stating whether Starfield does some of these elements better than other Bethesda games like Skyrim. Howard emphasized how much work the developer put into ensuring a proper game flow as players move from one type of experience to another. As Howard explained how the various elements come together in Starfield, he clarified that they don't come off as different games to players despite how much development has been done to distinguish each system. As there are different ways to play Starfield with these various features, Howard also confirmed that he's testing as many aspects of the game as he can, with the latest focusing on spaceships. Given that previous Bethesda games like Fallout 4 and Skyrim have included similar mechanics like dialogue and crafting, Howard may just be suggesting that Starfield just has a little more to it than the others. Taking the deep dive's dialogue sequences into consideration, it appears as though developers at Bethesda are attempting to make interactions and dialogue between characters in Starfield an integral part of the experience. As one of the outposts is being built, in the bottom left corner of the screen, it's revealed that despite the many sections of the base that have already been built, only 10% of the build limit is being used. This is a major improvement compared to some of Bethesda's other games featuring base building. The buildings in Starfield look empty, so it's possible that once the player starts to add all those space-related items inside, the build limit could balloon to 100% faster than expected. Given the fact that a large majority of RPG titles contain this element in one form or another, this stands as a prerequisite for this title, but with the potential to make it matter more than ever. With titles such as The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt or other unique games such as Detroit Become Human, which highlights player choice and decision. If Starfield can manage to take this up another notch and have a large amount of dialogue segments contain an impact on the overarching story, then it will only improve the anticipated great experience. One of the aspects that are integral to any RPG title in modern gaming is the loot system and how rewarding and worthwhile it should be. With titles such as Destiny 2, Monster Hunter World, Dragon Age, and many more, their loot systems are so important to the overall experience that they would not be the same without them. Some, such as the aforementioned Monster Hunter World, have loot placed as the main goal for players, as finding new monsters to slay means a new gear set would be available. Considering the huge difference between these titles and Starfield, Bethesda would need to find a way to implement loot systems that feel rewarding without them feeling like a live service-styled system. Especially after the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League backlash. Ensuring that there are enough weapons to find, with different rarity levels and stats, can provide a pleasing gameplay loop and implements another purpose among all the present elements. As Starfield will contain a personality system within its character creation, giving players a variety of traits to choose from, it introduces the topic of an honor or social system. Players who are familiar with Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption 2 will be aware that depending on how players behave and interact with other NPCs in the open world, it could either increase or decrease their honor, reflecting one who is an outlaw or a law-abiding citizen. While it's very clear that Red Dead Redemption 2 and Starfield are two completely different games, it would be interesting to see a similar system implemented here which could, in turn, adjust the personality traits that players had set during character creation based on choices they make during story and side missions. Every console tries to cater to multiple audiences, but they also seem to all have a specific genre they focus on above the rest. PlayStation seems to be all about action-adventure and story-driven games while Nintendo goes after family-friendly experiences. In recent years, it has been hard to figure out just what market Xbox has been after. The console has seen a wide variety of experiences, but it has not really been the home of a specific genre for a little while now. However, that all seems to be changing over the next couple of years. Xbox used to be the home for shooters, but ever since it lost the exclusive Call of Duty deal and Halo Infinite failed to make an impact, its place in gaming has not been clear. While there has not been a shortage of games, it has not nailed down a specific market like the Switch or PS5 has. However, the latest Xbox Games Showcase seems to be changing that. Over the next couple of years, the Xbox Series X seems to be becoming the home of expansive RPGs, and that should be great news for fans of the genre. Since acquiring Obsidian Entertainment and Bethesda, it seemed like Xbox wanted to go all in on expansive RPGs. After its latest showcase, that approach has been made very clear. After Bethesda launches Starfield, it will allegedly focus its efforts on The Elder Scrolls 6. At the same time, Obsidian Entertainment is developing Avowed and Playground Games is making Fable. That is 3 fantasy RPGs coming from Xbox Game Studios over the next couple of years, and there will likely be even more after. Avowed will be Obsidian Entertainment's version of The Elder Scrolls set within the Pillars of Eternity universe. It looks like it will have all the hallmarks of the genre on a smaller scale and may be exactly what RPG fans need to tie themselves over until The Elder Scrolls 6 hit store shelves. While no release date has been announced yet, it is supposed to launch sometime in 2024. If it matches the quality of previous Obsidian Entertainment titles, then it should be a fantastic ride from beginning to end. Playground Games has been working hard on Fable for a little while now, and fans finally got to see a glimpse of it at the Xbox Games Showcase. It will reboot the classic Fable series and whisk players back to the colorful world of Albion for a brand new adventure. It looks to be as funny as ever and will hopefully mark the grand return of this iconic franchise. While no release date or gameplay has been revealed, Xbox will likely show more of it soon. It may not be as expansive as The Elder Scrolls is, but it should still be a great fantasy experience nonetheless. After Bethesda finally launches the hotly anticipated Starfield, it will focus its attention on the next Elder Scrolls. Nothing is known about this project, but Bethesda seldom disappoints with its expansive RPGs. It will likely take everything good about Skyrim and expand upon it in exciting ways. Even though players have only seen a title card, it is still one of the most anticipated upcoming releases in years. It will be interesting to see what the studio has planned, and hopefully, fans will not have to wait forever. Those three fantasy RPGs are the primary focus of Xbox's upcoming first-party slate, and those are not the only RPGs on the way. There are also some third-party fantasy titles on the horizon. Xbox already has The Elder Scrolls Online. And if the Activision Blizzard acquisition gets approved, then it will have even more RPGs and fantasy worlds to play with. Starfield and The Outer Worlds may not be fantasy-related, but they are also expansive first-party RPGs coming out in the future. It seems like Xbox's future is in the RPG, and fans of the genre will want to get their hands on the console or a PC so that they can be a part of that future. Starfield really impressed me, but I have my gripes with the show not showing gameplay for Hellblade 2, Fable, and disappointed with Avowed. One of my most favorite reveal from recent memory is the new Prince of Persia. The 2023 Summer Game Fest event kicked off with the reveal of a new Prince of Persia game in development at Ubisoft, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Prince of Persia was once one of Ubisoft's key franchises, but it's been over a decade since a substantial new game in the series has hit store shelves. The Prince of Persia franchise has been dormant for quite some time, but Ubisoft is looking to bring it back in a big way. One way it's accomplishing this is through the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake. Fan reaction to the Sands of Time remake has been mostly negative, with many voicing their disapproval of the game's graphics. Ubisoft has gone back to the drawing board with the remake, and at this point, there's no telling when fans will get to play it. Luckily, there will be a new Prince of Persia experience to help fill the void in the meantime. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown was announced at Summer Game Fest 2023 with an exciting trailer that confirmed its January 18, 2024 release date. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is taking the Prince of Persia franchise back to its 2D platformer roots, with a big focus on action, boss fights, and puzzle solving. While some Prince of Persia fans may prefer something more in line with the 3D action games from the PS2 era, the game still looks very impressive based on what's been shown so far. Prince Dostan has always been a nimble protagonist, pulling off death-defying leaps and aerial acrobatics. The animations on display in Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown are already quite dazzling, blending a nice sweet spot between pitch-perfect platforming skill and fast-paced combat. Dostan is able to gracefully leap and dash in the air, all while juggling enemies with his set of razor-sharp swords. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown has also been confirmed to be a Metroidvania style of game, similar to Castlevania Lords of Shadow: Mirror of Fate. Allowing players to explore dense environments will only further encourage players to get a full grip on the many platforming mechanics at hand in the upcoming game. While this was certainly present in the 3D outings, it was more timing-based in relation to other obstacles in the environment. The Lost Crown seems to be allowing more freedom for players to fully master their movesets, giving the game a more organic feel in the process. This first reveal of the game is a promising direction for the Prince of Persia series and a breath of fresh air for fans awaiting the latest adventure starring Prince Dostan. It's been 13 long years since fans last played a new Prince of Persia game, and in that time, many fans have expressed their deepest desires for a hypothetical next entry in the series. While many fans longed for a return to the 3D action platforming that the Sands of Time offered, a good portion of the fanbase was hoping for a true return to form. Harkening all the way back to the very first game in the series, and Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown looks like it might finally deliver on both of those wishes. Set in the mysterious region of Mount Kaf, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown returns the franchise to its 2D roots. Released in 1989, the first Prince of Persia and several of its sequels pioneered next-generation 2D platforming gameplay, offering realistic animations and pinpoint-accurate jumps and acrobatics. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time took this general premise 14 years later, and translated it to a 3D plane, revolutionizing platforming for a new age. From what fans have seen so far, it seems like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown marries both of these gameplay styles, taking Sands of Time's fluid parkour mechanics and translating them back into a rich 2D plane. Ranged combat, close quarters combat, a parrying system, and cinematic special moves are all shown off repeatedly throughout the trailer, all looking very stylish and satisfying to pull off. And to top it all off, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown teased a few of its boss battles, all of which appear to be against some kind of intimidating mythological beasts, such as a manticore or giant snake. With games like Dead Space, Resident Evil 4, and System Shock all receiving comprehensive remakes in 2023, it's clear that improving on past successes is a viable way to bring a game to new audiences. Prince of Persia needs a hit, as the last all-new release came in 2010 with The Forgotten Sands, and doing something completely from scratch would, naturally, bring a higher risk of failure than building on top of something that already provides a blueprint, no matter how basic. The first Prince of Persia was released 34 years ago, and though it's far from what the series would become, there's a lot to like about it. That, too, uses a side-scrolling perspective, and does well to keep players entertained while using its, admittedly simple, mechanics. Should The Lost Crown release in January 2024 to critical and commercial acclaim, it implies that there is a market for 2D games in the series. And the 1989 debut provides the perfect opportunity to take advantage of the popularity of remakes, while also adhering to the Prince's new direction. In a clear transition phase for the Prince of Persia, experimenting with different ideas makes a lot of sense. Taking the fundamentals of the IP and using different gameplay ideas could give the series new life and help it to stand out among other action-adventure titles, even differentiating it from Assassin's Creed. If proven to be successful, this retro revival strategy for classic Ubisoft franchises doesn't have to stop with Assassin's Creed and Prince of Persia. With the publisher's other highest-profile legacy franchise facing increased criticisms of its own in recent years, maybe a throwback Far Cry blissfully free of towers to climb could even be next on the list. Sonic Superstars is a new co-op Sonic the Hedgehog game coming to PC and consoles later this fall. Sega announced the new game during Jeff Keighley's 2023 Summer Game Fest on June 8, and fans are sure to be thrilled with this surprise announcement and its relatively close release date. Sega released the first Sonic the Hedgehog game on the Sega Genesis in 1991. Its high-speed gameplay made it stand out from other 2D platformers of the time and earned the series a die-hard fanbase that follows it to this day. The franchise has been through its ups and downs over the years, and some say it never fully recovered from the jump to 3D. However, Sonic Superstars may have a chance to capture a modern audience while delivering on the old-school gameplay that longtime fans want. Sonic Superstars Summer Game Fest announcement trailer opened with a 2D Sonic dashing through the iconic Green Hill Zone when he suddenly crosses the border into 3D. After a bit of confusion, he shrugs and runs off into the beautifully 3D modeled side-scrolling environment. However, while the sight of classic Sonic gameplay in a new look was enough to earn applause from the live audience, Sonic Superstars' most significant new feature is the addition of 4-player co-op. Sonic Superstars lets players break the sound barrier as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, or Amy. In addition to all 4 being available in single-player, fans can pick their favorite supersonic mammal and partner with 3 friends to stop the sinister plans of Sonic antagonist Dr. Eggman Robotnik. The trailer also showed how each character brings something special to the table. As with other Sonic games, the title character may be faster, but Tails' flight and Knuckles' climbing ability are handy in traversing the levels. Meanwhile, Amy's hammer allows her to clear a path through some obstacles. The Sonic Superstars trailer also showed off some unique levels and exciting power-ups. 2 examples of the latter included a flying void and a Tron-looking environment the characters into voxel squids. Meanwhile, one power-up turned Sonic into hedgehog-shaped water, letting him traverse up waterfalls into other parts of the level. Sonic also apparently now has the power to summon a flurry of other Sonics to batter bosses into submission. Finally, fans can access an exclusive alternate Amy Rose skin by signing up on Sonic Superstars' official website. Sega revealed that the new Sonic the Hedgehog co-op game would be a full-priced release, starting at $60 US. Shortly after the event was over, Sega revealed a number of aspects that weren't covered in the trailer. This includes Sonic Superstar's price, along with confirming that the new power shown off in the trailer was a power used by the Chaos Emeralds. One thing that caught fans' attention was Sega's statement near the end, where it noted that Sonic and his friends will be facing off against Dr. Eggman, Fong the Sniper, and apparently a brand new character that is designed by Sonic's original character designer, Naoto Oshima. Some fans believe this character can be seen in the game's intro sequence and could be playable. Looking at Sonic Stadium's still frame of the intro sequence, this character beside Eggman and Fong could be a fifth playable character for Sonic Superstars, or the secret final boss of the whole game. The theory for the fifth playable slot stems from how there's a space above Knuckles that would fit another character like Fong or the aforementioned helmeted creature. It's possible that space could be filled by another character after initially beating the game, but this is just speculation at this time. This new character appears to be an animal like Sonic and his friends, based on the arms and tail. The robotic part on top looks more like a helmet than a robotic enhancement, with them stumbling in the animation as well. Some fans believe this character is the one that was designed by Sonic character designer Naoto Oshima, and they'll be seeing his unmasked form later. While the Like a Dragon series, formerly Yakuza outside of Japan, entered a golden age after the release of Yakuza 0 in 2015. That upward momentum appears to be continuing on the gameplay reveal of Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. Not only does it bring the original star of the series back into the modern age, developer Ryu-Ga Gotoku is also settling back into fast-paced action in Like a Dragon Gaiden. With the Like a Dragon series now seemingly split into three separate major storylines, between protagonists Kiryu, Ichiban, and Yagami. There is more room than ever to experiment with the long-running franchise. Having the new turn-based systems in the Ichiban storyline developed alongside the more classic action of Like a Dragon Gaiden could help to keep fans invested, regardless of their preferred combat style for the franchise. Nailing down the last time Kiryu took the starring role in the mainline Like a Dragon series can be difficult to track, given the nature of the prequels and remakes that have thrived since 2015. The last point in his ongoing storyline was in Yakuza 6: The Song of Life, which originally released in 2016, although the character did return for Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2. Since then, Ichiban took over as the new series protagonist for the incredible Yakuza Like a Dragon. The most recent look at Kiryu was through Like a Dragon Ishin, where the character's face was used to portray the historical figure Sakamoto Ryoma. So, having the protagonist returning in Like a Dragon Gaiden, even if he appears to no longer answer to the name Kiryu, is a solid move to keep the series close to its original roots. With the tonal shift that came with transitioning from Kiryu as the playable character to Ichiban in Yakuza Like a Dragon, keeping the spin-off titles closer to the original series could be a step in the right direction to keep fans of the older games around. Additionally, the return of Kiryu appears to have also re-established the character's iconic brand of combat back into the spin-off titles for the series. Similar to how the remake of Like a Dragon, Ishin, brought a similar return to the action of the early series, but with its own twist on more weapon-centered combat that still helps it stand out from other titles. However, from what has been shown of Like a Dragon Gaiden's gameplay so far, it appears that Kiryu will be returning with his trademark hand-to-hand combat, with a combination of improvised and stored weapons. It allows for a level of the same high-octane, impulse-driven action that makes controlling Kiryu such an expert power fantasy, as he punches his way through waves of enemies. At the same time, the action combat appearing in Like a Dragon Gaiden means that Like a Dragon 8 is free to continue experimenting with the turn-based party system that the Ichiban storyline developed in the last major title. Developer Ryu-Ga Gotoku doesn't have to choose between the two combat systems, instead being able to allow both to evolve over time alongside each other. This means that the series could expand its reach to accommodate players that prefer either system, without leaving any fans behind in the process. While fans first got a teaser trailer and release date of Like a Dragon Gaiden during Summer Game Fest, the developer still had more to show during June's RGG Summit event, which was first announced back in May and promised more news on both Gaiden and Infinite Wealth. The 45-minute long presentation showed off the aforementioned teaser trailer, but also included some extra footage, such as Kiryu using his two new styles. Kiryu's new styles in Like a Dragon Gaiden are known as the Yakuza and Agent, with the former focused on his natural strength and martial arts, while the latter is a tool-based crowd control applicable style, hence the Agent moniker. The two gameplay clips shown during the live stream, Kiryu's Yakuza style has familiar techniques that the Dragon of Dojima has used before. This includes attacks and moves that stem from his Brawler and Dragon of Dojima stances from Yakuza 0, along with brutal context-sensitive heat actions. The Agent style, however, is very different from past fighting stances that Kiryu has adopted from games past. With its focus on crowd control, Kiryu's got some new toys at his disposal. These include a wire that shoots out of his wrist a la Spider-Man, which can bind mooks or draw them to the player before tossing them, and also pull nearby weapons for Kiryu to use. He can call upon drones to distract his enemies or even light a cigarette before tossing it over his shoulder to cause a huge explosion. These two styles make Kiryu play a lot like the Judgment sub-series Takayuki Yagami in a way. The RGG Summer Summit also revealed some of the actors and their characters in Like a Dragon Gaiden, who are all modeled or portrayed by celebrities. Joining Kiryu's time as Joryu are two Omi Alliance family members, Shishido Kozai and Tsuruno Yuki, along with a mysterious woman known as Akame. Another character who was shown off, but whose actor was not available to attend, was Hamar Nishitani, the third in the lineage of the eccentric villain first introduced in Yakuza 0. The developers also confirmed the game will be taking place in the Omi Alliance's home turf, Sodenbori. At least to some degree, Like a Dragon Gaiden is confirmed to take place in 2018, after Yakuza 6 The Song of Life and before Yakuza, Like a Dragon. This roughly puts it 2 years after the events of the 6th game and 1 year before Yakuza Like a Dragon. As such, it's likely to explain how Kiryu was found and able to assist in the deconstruction of the Tojo clan and Omi Alliance. However, at that time, he was still very much protective of his identity. As many know, Kiryu erased his name and effectively his reputation as the Dragon of Dojima to protect Haruka and her son. He wouldn't and doesn't take this lightly, given his profound love as her adoptive father. Obviously, something gives somewhere though. Like a Dragon 8 is confirmed to feature Kiryu and Ichiban as protagonists, meaning something thrusts him back into the public eye to some degree. He could still be super secretive, he could still have the moniker Joryu, or something could have brought his prior agreement to an end. What's clear though is those questions will be answered in Like a Dragon 8 and not Like a Dragon Gaiden. Still, before taking Kiryu for a spin in turn-based gameplay, it'll be great to fill in the years between his fake death and his sudden reappearance in the Yakuza lifestyle with the franchise's classic gameplay. Like a Dragon Gaiden will play a big role in developing his time as an agent and someone who erased his name, fitting in the blank years before Yakuza Like a Dragon. But for Kiryu's future and what that means for the franchise, fans will have to wait for Like a Dragon 8. Fans who were hoping to grab a physical version of Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name upon release, are unlikely to be able to do so, according to some newly surfaced information. Since physical game sales continue to suffer from a substantial decline, many publishers are growing increasingly more wary of committing resources to boxed releases. Sega hasn't been an exception to that trend, as most recently underlined by its 2022 game compilation Sonic Origins, which was a digital-only title. The Japanese gaming giant did eventually revert that particular decision by greenlighting a physical version of Sonic Origins Plus, an expanded edition of the bundle which is scheduled to hit the store shelves on June 23. Yet Sega apparently remains reluctant to commit to physical releases moving forward, with YouTube channel Kamurocho Brothers reporting that the English-language version of Like a Dragon Gaiden will only be available digitally. This information comes from a second-hand account citing retailers who allegedly discussed the matter with Sega. The claim itself does seem to help explain why Like a Dragon Gaiden is set to debut at $50. Not least because publishers often highlight reduced introductory prices as one of the main advantages of digital-only releases. While Sega has yet to confirm that the West won't receive a physical edition of Like a Dragon Gaiden, its omission from the game's pre-order page that went live on June 8 already implied as much. As things stand right now, fans looking to grab a boxed copy of the game will have to resort to importing one from the Far East. Seeing how only the Japanese version of Like a Dragon Gaiden will apparently be getting a physical release. And though it's plausible that this isn't the last of Sega's planned 2023 games that won't be widely distributed physically, There's reason to believe that Like a Dragon Gaiden isn't necessarily a sign of a digital-only future for the hit series. After all, the Like a Dragon-Ishin remake was just treated to a global physical release back in February. Furthermore, Sega already confirmed that Like a Dragon Gaiden will be a smaller-scale game compared to the past installments in the franchise. It's hence possible that its reserved distribution strategy is merely a reflection of the game's more niche appeal, which its very title already hints at. Seeing how Gaiden is a Japanese term for a side story, but still, a physical version is necessary. Ryuga Gotoku Studio unveils that the 8th mainline game in the Like a Dragon series is getting new title in the West, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, along with a brand new teaser trailer. This teaser trailer was shown off during the Xbox Games Show, where a number of new games from Sega were revealed, such as Persona 3 Reload and Metaphor Re-Fantazio. One game that confused but interested a lot of people was Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, where fans believed it was a teaser trailer for a new spin-off in the series. When in actuality it was Like a Dragon 8, just now under a new subtitle in the West. Like a Dragon 8 was first announced last year during the RGG Summit 2022 event, where it showed off both a returning Kazuma Kiryu and Ichiban Kasuga, along with two other spin-offs, Like a Dragon Gaiden and the Like a Dragon Ishin Remake. The remake released earlier in 2023, with Summer Game Fest revealing a new trailer for Gaiden that confirmed its launch will be this November. This new teaser trailer for Infinite Wealth reaffirms its release window, along with giving fans a teaser of what to expect. This trailer for Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth starts with Ichiban Kasuga washed ashore a crowded beach. Although it is very obvious that he is naked, he himself is amusingly oblivious to his own nudity. The area he is in is very unfamiliar to him, until he startles a nearby beach-goer, shrieking that he is a streaker, with a number of the other locals laughing at his current situation. It takes until a couple is able to bring to his attention that he doesn't have any clothes on that he properly panics. The Japanese trailer retains its original, Like a Dragon 8 title. The setting of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth caught many fans' attention, where Ichiban is unable to understand anyone that's talking to him. And the first character to speak is a blonde woman in perfect English, alongside a number of other English-speaking locals. Based on that alone, it seems that Ichiban has ended up in America, and based on the environment and foliage, it's likely that he ended up in the state of Hawaii. As theorized by one fan, this setting is likely because Hawaii and Japan have strong economic and cultural ties, similar to how Persona 5 featured a vacation in the western state. Aside from this teaser trailer, the official website for the game also went live, where some additional screenshots can be spotted. The first consists of the party of Ichiban, Nanba, and Adachi, while the second one shows the lovable protagonist hanging out with Kazuma Kiryu. RGG Studio developers have been tight-lipped in interviews about major questions surrounding the story of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. But recent comments about the game's name change imply the significance of the game's subtitle in regards to its story. The justification for the new subtitle for the game's Western release comes from a fear that players who started the series with Yakuza Like a Dragon would be confused by its sequel being titled Like a Dragon 8. In an effort to curb confusion, RGG Studio says it wanted to give the game a title that could help it stand on its own while reflecting the game's core themes. While not directly confirming any plot points, the developers of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth have stated that the concept of infinity is an important theme within the game. Kiryu is said to be a character that carries the past with him, while Kasuga is a character who carries the future with him. It's clear this statement is meant to reference the passing of the torch from one protagonist to another. But it could also represent the metaphorical life cycle of a character as the end of one story gives way to the start of a new one, thus creating an infinite loop. Subtitle could also have a more literal meaning that directly references an aspect of the game's plot beyond just overarching themes. A major plot point of Yakuza Like a Dragon was the money counterfeiting scheme of the Gaiden 3 that Kasuga and the party uncovered during their investigation into the counterfeit bill Kasuga is discovered with. The counterfeiting operation was the primary way the three organizations that make up the Gaiden 3 were able to maintain their power within Gaijincho. And being able to print money at will would literally be considered infinite wealth. The Like a Dragon series has made itself known for its duality between emotionally driven story beats and comedic side quests and mini-games, blending oscillating tones in a way that works surprisingly well. Yakuza Like a Dragon was no exception to this, as it followed the plight of Ichiban Kasuga on his quest to become a hero. Balancing his encounters with the Gaiden 3 between forays into Dragon Kart, karaoke, running a full-scale property business, and many more. Title made proper use of its Yokohama setting as a playground for Ichi and the party while tying RPG tropes into both its enemy and class design, making for an inventive depiction of a turn-based battle system. Ranging from conventional combat classes like Junji Han's Hitman and Zhao's martial arts-based gangster jobs, to the more inventive roles like Nanba's homeless guy and Eri's clerk roles. Yakuza Like a Dragon made clever use of real-world professions in its combat. This affected not just character designs, but the title's move system and corresponding animations. Utilizing AoE attacks like Eri's Thumbtack Scatter or Seiko's Idol Magical Song HP Recovery spell allowed for humorous tie-ins to its many job inspirations while building on the title's versatility in party structures. Such a system will likely see even more nuance in Like a Dragon 8, which could pave the way for connections to minigames themselves. Given that Yakuza Like a Dragon separated its leveling system between base character levels and job levels, grinding for experience in multiple roles was pivotal to gaining access to a more rounded moveset. Rather than focusing on Yakuza's new turn-based combat system, Like a Dragon 8 could weave job experience with minigames themselves, coupling two of its core mechanics. For example, a cooking minigame where Zhao teaches Ichiban how to make a dish could earn them experience in their chef classes, while a karaoke duet between Seiko and Eri could raise their idol class rankings. The amount of experience gained could determine it by how well the player performs in the minigame, paving the way for special dialogue and group interactions. Such a feature could supplement Yakuza Like a Dragon's approach to a Persona-esque bond system, where its cast were able to delve more into their backstories as they sipped drinks at Survive Bar. With how well the title approached its party dynamic while building on the character development of its JRPG cast, the integration of minigames into job roles for Like a Dragon 8 could be tantamount to its predecessor's use of party chat and table talk mechanics, which allowed for dialogue to pop up while roaming around Ijincho and having meals with the team. While Like a Dragon 8 could still rely on combat to improve job ranking, using minigames as an alternative could help to diversify grinding. With how essential leveling was for players to complete Yakuza Like a Dragon's Platinum Trophy, a blend between minigames and job experience could be perfect for the next title's post-game. Second runs of the final Millennium Tower relied on both character levels and job levels to be in the 90s, which required an immense amount of experience grinding through combat. Having more options in Like a Dragon 8 could make the process a bit more engaging while building on the strengths of its party interactions. Atlas has officially revealed both Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5 Tactica at the Xbox Games Showcase. The former game is the long-awaited remake of the third mainline game in the series, while the latter is a tactics-based strategy RPG that involves the Phantom Thieves. There had been rumors and leaks regarding the Persona series that fans have been hearing throughout the year, with the strongest ones being present during the Persona series' 25th anniversary celebrations. The rumors of these games were strengthening before Summer Game Fest weekend, where a set of URL domains for P5T and P3RE suggested something was going to be revealed soon. It was then validated when a few days before the showcase, two trailers were accidentally leaked via Atlas' Instagram account through its Reel feature. The trailers were quickly taken down, but not before they had time to circulate online. Despite both Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5 Tactica becoming the worst-kept secrets going into the Xbox Games Showcase, both games have now had their official unveiling at the event. Trailer for Persona 3 Reload starts off with an iconic shot of Aegis staring out into the ocean, where she then turns back to face the Seas group, including Makoto Yuki, the protagonist. From there, it shows the player running through various daily activities at Gakuen High School, along with exploring the Tartarus dungeon. The menu UI is much more stylized than before, with the main menu being a standout that sees Makoto Yuki diving into water to bring up the options. A new song sung by series resident rapper Lotus Juice, known as The Meaning of Armbands, can be heard throughout the trailer as well. It may not make every Persona 3 fan happy, however, after it was recently revealed that the game won't come with all the content some were expecting. The reveal of Persona 3 Reload's missing content comes via a recent interview between IGN and the remake's producer Ryota Niitsuma along with director Kazuhisa Wada. In the interview, it is announced that Persona 3 Reload will focus specifically on remaking the elements that were available in the original release of the game for PlayStation 2 back in 2006. Niitsuma told IGN, "We don't have the FES and portable contents included. We wanted to really genuinely work on recreating the Persona 3 experience. The FES content is known for including an epilogue in which the players control the popular character Aegis. The portable content most notably added the option for the player to choose a female protagonist rather than the male protagonist who was the only choice in the original version of the game. Picking the female protagonist alters certain things within the story, such as Persona 3's limited social links and Igor's assistant being changed from Elizabeth to Theodore. There are also 2 extra difficulties added to the portable content that will apparently not be available in Persona 3 Reload. It's unlikely that the decision to omit the content from FES and portable will be a deal-breaker for most. The lack of a playable female protagonist along with the extra difficulties will certainly be missed by many legacy fans of the game, but overall, the core gameplay of the original title is maintained in Persona 3 Reload while being updated in the right places along with the visual buff. Most players will more than likely look the other way. In an interview between Persona 3 Reload's director, Takuya Yamaguchi, and 4Gamer, he confirms that the story and social links of the original P3 are going to be kept intact. But there will be new scenarios for the characters in the game who didn't have social links. In the original P3, male party members didn't have any social links with the protagonist, which weren't implemented until later games like Persona 4 and 5. While the P3 remake won't have them implemented as social links, there will still be scenarios that develop their individual personalities and relationships. The other big change is that any social link scenarios will be entirely voiced whenever a player moves up a rank in the link. He would also confirm that Persona 3 Reload will have the largest amount of voiced dialogue to date. This will consist of all newly recorded dialogue as well, so fans can hear a new interpretation of events they experienced before with Persona 3 Reload's new English voice cast. Other changes to the gameplay elements in Persona 3 Reload were also detailed, such as how the player now being able to directly command their party members like in later games, or how players can find breakable objects. The director also describes how the player can also encounter small conversations between their party members while exploring Tartarus. Along with how the Unreal Engine is being used in ways to make the randomly generated labyrinth less visually monotonous. Persona 5 Tactica, however, is another Persona spin-off game involving the ever-popular Phantom Thieves, this time being in a tactics-based strategy game similar to Fire Emblem or Triangle Strategy. Also introduces a new character and faction known as the Rebel Corps, who were helped by the thieves themselves in some capacity. The gameplay shown has elements of the original game such as the skills, but has new elements like Triple Threat, which can execute an all-out attack-esque maneuver. The game's art style looks to take heavy inspiration from the Persona Q series, opting for a more cutesy approach to its Persona 5 character and enemy depictions. This continues into the title's environmental direction, which appears to take a top-down perspective during combat, similar to Fire Emblem's handling. Persona 5 Tactica's emphasis on its tactical gameplay could have interesting implications on battle dynamics through this way. For example, one scene showcases Makoto atop a roof as she pummels an enemy to the ground, after which Morgana follows up with a slingshot-based critical hit. Much like FE, this could imply some strategic uses of terrain for notable combat effects while playing into paired attacks from party members. With cooperative ways to deal damage comes Persona 5 Tactica's approach to the all-out attack mechanic. The title features a cleverly named Triple Threat prompt that appears to work similarly to Fire Emblem's Pegasus-based triangle attack, dealing attacks to enemies within the vicinity through a devastating team-up. The game's emphasis on gun attacks, arts, and the triple threat mechanic implies similarities to Persona 5's combat, with arts comprising the array of elemental skills, status-afflicting moves, and physical attacks that Personas are capable of. The trailer's combat was highlighted by the reveal of a brand new character, who looks to be a part of the strange world that the Phantom Thieves find themselves stuck in. It is likely that this character will work to establish the narrative surrounding the game's conflicts while acting as a guide of sorts, similar to Sophia's role in Persona 5 Strikers. While she appears almost Raider-like upon first glance, hidden behind a black cape and hat, her black and red costume looks like a blend of the modern and antique. Further accentuated by her firearm which resembles Joker's. Her dual flag/spear combo makes for an interesting melee weapon, which could imply that she'll strike a balance between being a frontline attacker and supporter in her play style. Given the acclaim surrounding Persona 5 Strikers, it's likely that Tactica will be successful in its new combat focus, finding inventive ways to represent the main themes and mechanics of the series into a new model. If the game sells well, then it could point towards the formula being used again in the future, perhaps with Persona 6's cast following the series' next numbered release. As Atlus continues to introduce games under the Persona IP, it will be interesting to see what directions future spin-off games will take. For now, however, Persona 5 Tactica and the Phantom X seems like a clever stopgap in between mainline titles. Persona 5 Tactica will be launching this November, while Persona 3 Reload's trailer states its window will be within early 2024 for PS5, Xbox, Nintendo and PC. At the 2023 Xbox Games Showcase, Atlus fans got a surprisingly in-depth look at what the RPG-focused company has been up to. Not only were the leaked Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5 Tactica given proper reveals, but the much-anticipated Project Re-Fantazio was finally shown as well. In fact, not only was it renamed as Metaphor Re-Fantazio, but it was also given a release year and an expansive gameplay trailer. Metaphor Re-Fantazio looks like something wholly unique in the current era of gaming, yet it retains everything that has made Atlus RPGs so popular. This game takes the Persona style of gameplay, including summon monsters and social links within an in-game calendar, and applies them to a high fantasy setting. Persona and Shin Megami Tensei in general have always been fantastical, but were squarely rooted in either urban fantasy or post-apocalyptic dark fantasy. Metaphor Re-Fantazio looks to bridge the gap between the two, and has populated the revealed party with an appropriately large portion of fantasy races. It still looks to scratch the Persona itch, but it may have also dashed hopes for a Persona 6 in the coming years. While the strange creatures and anachronistic technology present in Metaphor Re-Fantazio's trailer suggests a fascinating new setting, the story behind its development is also quite interesting. Metaphor Re-Fantazio markets itself as a game from the key staff of Persona 3, 4, and 5, sharing a director, character designer, and composer with all of them. This is notable, as director Katsura Hoshino left Atlus' internal P Studio after the release of Persona 5 to form another internal team, Studio Zero. It hasn't released anything besides the Catherine full-body remake, but that was likely because it was busy with Metaphor Re-Fantazio. The Persona franchise is alive and well, still benefiting from work by Metaphor character designer Shigenori Soejima and composer Shoji Meguro. However, Hoshino, the director and producer of Persona 3 through 5 who also wrote the original story for P4 and P5, was working on Catherine and Metaphor. P Studio didn't lose enough talent to stop making Persona titles, but fans have begun to notice that the franchise has been preoccupied with Persona 5 side games for quite a while. Persona 4's era lasted 8 years, but Persona 5 has been seeing spin-offs for 7 and there's still no Persona 6 in sight. No doubt some DNA from Persona and Shin Megami Tensei will be in Metaphor Re-Fantazio. Several longtime contributors from both series are involved in the game, including Persona series director Katsura Hoshino leading the project, and characters designed by Shigenori Soejima. Longtime composer Shoji Meguro is also behind the music in the game, as despite officially leaving Atlus in 2021, he still works with it often. Close examination of Metaphor Re-Fantazio's trailer suggests a likely cause for this. In all respects except its setting, Metaphor is a new Persona game. Much of the key staff is shared between the two, and while its battle system and equipped Persona equivalent may be different, traces of old mechanics are still visible. What is likely happening here is that, until a game with its title enters development, Metaphor Re-Fantazio is Persona 6 in Atlus' eyes. They occupy the same space as multi-platform AAA JRPGs, and it seems like Studio Zero may have borrowed a lot of P Studio's regular talent to make this happen. Unfortunately, that means Persona 6 is most likely years away, and it's difficult to say if the game has even begun pre-production. Its series will undoubtedly keep going until then, but as little more than the ongoing stream of Persona spin-offs and remakes. Once Metaphor Re-Fantazio, the Persona 3 Remake, and Persona 5 Tactica are all out, Atlus should be able to start hashing out the next numbered Persona. Until then, Persona will be joining its parent Shin Megami Tensei in the back seat. Fans of both can take solace in Metaphor Re-Fantazio carrying its predecessor's torch. Star Wars Outlaws will take fans on an open-world trek through the criminal underbelly of the iconic galaxy far, far away next year. Ubisoft announced that it would be partnering with Lucasfilm Games to publish an open-world Star Wars game way back in 2021. Massive Entertainment, the in-house studio behind The Division 2 and The Crew 2, is developing this sandbox space adventure, which will reportedly allow players to pilot a mix of classic Star Wars and brand new creations across several planets. There's been very little official word on Ubisoft's open-world Star Wars game, which was tentatively titled Project Helix, in the 2 years since its official announcement. But there have been plenty of rumors and reports about when more information would be revealed. Back in January, Massive Entertainment creative director Julian Garrity brought in the new year with a cryptic tweet hinting at his team's Star Wars project. And an unverified source claimed that the studio was aiming to release Project Helix sometime in early 2024. Now Project Helix has been confirmed for next year, and even has an official name and a few plot details to go with it. At the very beginning of today's Xbox Games Showcase, Massive Entertainment presented a CGI teaser trailer for Star Wars Outlaws, an open-world Star Wars game that will be set sometime during the original movie trilogy. This trailer starts with an unnamed female protagonist playing sabacc in a cantina while narrating about how the galaxy belongs to the syndicates. Her game is cut short after a pair of bounty hunters arrive, prompting her and her cat-like alien companion to flee. A bar brawl soon breaks out to cover her escape, and she soon climbs onto a speeder bike outside as she narrates how she won't be held back anymore. This quest for freedom leads to her ship, where a stranger named Jalen, who somewhat resembles Kyle Katarn from the Dark Forces games, offers to help her pull off an unspecified mission. After more images of the unnamed heroine sneaking into syndicate strongholds, fending off enemies on her swoop bike, and fleeing from the Empire in her ship, the game's official title of Star Wars Outlaws is shown, along with a vague launch window of 2024. While there wasn't any gameplay footage shown during this teaser trailer, Outlaws looks like it could be an interesting journey through the dark and complex criminal underworld of the Star Wars galaxy, something that was teased in the past with unproduced projects like Star Wars 1313. Star Wars Outlaws could tap into that potential when it launches next year. To the shock of many, Ubisoft unveiled its open-world Star Wars project, Star Wars Outlaws, to the world at the Xbox Games Showcase, promising more gameplay at its proper Ubisoft forward presentation. In it, players take on the role of scoundrel Kay Vess as she tackles a heist offered by a character named Jalen, who also suspiciously looks like Kyle Katarn. This appears to be happening amid syndicate-controlled space, with the ever-present threat of the Empire looming too. Players will explore iconic and new planets in this open-world Star Wars game set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. The premise alone sells a lot of the game, but the gameplay does as well. It opened up with a cute look at Star Wars Outlaws Nyx, Kay's cute creature companion, before delving into gameplay. Kay is able to issue orders to Nyx in gameplay, as seen while she is sneaking around some form of base. When she is discovered by a hired gun speaking Huttese, combat begins. Kay wields a blaster, but can swap between certain blasts to deal with items like shields. She can also pick up weapons like assault rifles, it is shown, before she gets away with a speeder bike. However, they are in pursuit of Kay, creating an awesome chase scene reminiscent of some Star Wars classics. A reputation counter can also be seen in this gameplay. Kay is then shown meeting up with a broker and someone from the Empire in a cantina, with the graphics being top-notch. This aspect isn't gameplay, but it shows how perfectly Ubisoft Massive has been able to nail the Star Wars aesthetic. While the gameplay elements and connection to the protagonist associated with Nyx seem to be clear, the same cannot be said for the origin of this creature. The first ever sighting of a new, rare, and previously unknown species called the Merkle, is it actually unknown what planet Nyx originates from. Resembling nothing else in the galaxy, Nyx's unique physiology and seemingly intelligent nature accomplished the impressive feat of making him a truly unique alien among the creatures of Star Wars. There may be no other Mercales known yet, but Nyx's background can't help but evoke a similarly diminutive character of the classic franchise. Originally introduced in The Empire Strikes Back, Master Yoda has long since cemented himself as one of the memorable characters in not only the history of his series but pop culture as a whole. Serving as the Jedi Master to Luke Skywalker, Yoda has long since defied his small stature through what he is capable of. Having served as a member of the Jedi Council with a hand in training nearly every Jedi in the galaxy during his 800-plus years as a master to countless students. Despite his dignified qualifications, though, Yoda also has some uncanny similarities to Kay's companion, Nyx. While Nyx may be a quadruped seemingly incapable of speech and Yoda stands proud as he delivers words of wisdom, origins draw parallels between these supporting characters. While Nyx is a member of the mysterious Merkel race that has an unknown home planet, Yoda matches his ambiguity by being a member of a race that doesn't even have a name. Yoda's race, as it is called in Star Wars canon, comes from a complete mystery of a home planet in the exact same manner as Nyx. Due to this obscurity, very few members of Yoda's home planet and race have been seen throughout the history of Star Wars, which is a fate that Nyx's species is likely to mirror. The parallel origin stories of these two smaller creatures are simply undeniable, as few races in the Star Wars galaxy are treated with so much mystique. With Grogu of the Mandalorian, better known as Baby Yoda, showing an adorable quality to the species heavily reminiscent of Nyx's charm. These connections may have been more intentional than they seem. The mysterious history of Nyx's species could remain just as unexplored as Yoda's. It does show a choice to bribe the Imperial, although it's uncertain how heavily the game relies on choices. From there, the game swiftly transitions into space combat, showing how that works in Star Wars Outlaws as well. But while Star Wars Outlaws' first gameplay trailer gave fans a decent look at its ground and space combat, some speeder chase gameplay, and some minor mechanics, the biggest standout of it all was Kay's furry little partner, Nyx, who could end up giving Star Wars Jedi survivors BD-1 a run for his money. The Star Wars universe is no stranger to cute little companions, and most of the time, they're of the droid variety. R2-D2 was, of course, the original Star Wars companion. Blurting out unknown expletives while doing the utility jobs no one else on the crew can, and having a distinct personality despite having no actual face. The sequel trilogy continued that trend with BB-8, and the Star Wars Jedi series took it another step further with BD-1, a Star Wars companion that directly helps the fan themselves. Generally speaking, BD-1 is one of the all-time greatest Star Wars companions. Like R2-D2 and BB-8, BD-1 uses a series of bleeps and bloops to communicate, and along with his dog-like head tilts, BD-1 has just as much of a personality as the rest, if not even more so. BD-1 also has the advantage of being a Star Wars video game companion, meaning that fans can directly interact with him over the course of a 30-plus hour adventure. It also helps that BD-1 is an incredibly useful droid, healing the player when they're low on health and scanning the environment and enemies for more databank entries. But BD-1 might have just met his match. Present throughout all of Star Wars Outlaws' first trailer and poster, Nyx is the latest new companion to the Star Wars universe. A furry little axolotl-like creature, Nyx is part of the Merkel species, though his home planet isn't known. As a companion to a smuggler, Nyx has seemingly developed a pretty boisterous attitude, though it's clear that he cares deeply about his partner. And that's exactly what Nyx is in Star Wars Outlaws, the player's partner. In Star Wars Outlaws' gameplay reveal trailer, Nyx can be spotted throughout, helping the player character continuously. Based on this trailer, and the developer commentary at the end of the Ubisoft Forward showcase, it seems as though Nyx will be a major part of Star Wars Outlaws gameplay, with the player being able to use the companion for a variety of different things. In the trailer, Nyx is used to distract enemies, activate an environmental object, and fetch a weapon on the ground meters away from the player while they continue to shoot enemies. As far as sheer gameplay practicality goes, Nyx might have already bested BD-1. The Star Wars galaxy has a pretty extensive criminal underworld. There are plenty of crime-filled planets, organized crime syndicates, and corrupt leaders, but it has never been thoroughly explored. Some iconic characters have come from this background, acting as both antagonists and anti-heroes at different times. But most of the time, the focus is on dealing with specific crime bosses, or a former crook finding their way out. There was a bit of crime exploration with the Book of Boba Fett, but the show can only do so much with a single setting. Star Wars Outlaws can change that. For once, the game moves outside of the usual dichotomy of the light and dark sides of the Force to explore the morally gray world between them. One gameplay system in particular showcased in the footage makes a huge callback to Grand Theft Auto's classic multi-leveled wanted system, where players garner additional levels of aggression from the cops based on the intensity of their criminal activity. After a sour meeting with a crime boss and an Imperial officer in a private cantina room, Kay Vess becomes wanted by the Empire. As she exits the saloon, images of her face populate screens in the bar. Upon stepping outside, the whole screen turns bright red with the word "Wanted" appearing in big, bold letters. As Kay runs to her ship, the Empire's icon populates the upper left corner of the screen with 3 flashing red bars out of 6 filled up around the logo. "Escape the Empire" reads on the opposite side of the screen. During a thrilling space battle above the planet, a 4th bar on the Empire's logo lights up before Kay is able to jump into hyperspace, gradually losing all wanted levels in the process. It's unknown if this system in Outlaws is just a visual used to support the narrative moment or if it's an actual dynamic free-roam gameplay feature. Either way, the system is fitting considering Kay's story as an outlaw entrenched in a life of crime. It'll be interesting to see the different ways in which Kay will be able to shake the Empire in the open world aside from jumping into hyperspace. It also features seamless transition from land to outer space. A recent reveal for Ubisoft's highly anticipated open-world Star Wars game, Star Wars Outlaws, has come to the delighted surprise of fans everywhere. Paired generously a day later with an in-depth gameplay showcase. With an emphasis on cinema-quality spectacle and fidelity, including all the familiar trappings fans have come to expect from the franchise. The reveal trailer for Star Wars Outlaws parallels Quantic Dream's 2022 reveal trailer for Star Wars Eclipse in several meaningful ways. Quantic Dream is a studio known for narrative-focused adventures with gameplay centered around branching conversation trees and quick-time events. Another hallmark of the studio is its cutting-edge visuals, a trait kept consistent with the reveal for Star Wars Eclipse. Set during the High Republic, the trailer revealed little about the game's story, though oozed style. With scenes of classic Star Wars imagery intercut with primal Sith-like figures wailing away on giant battle drums. Many view the Star Wars Eclipse trailer as the triumphant herald of Star Wars uncoupling from EA, showing great potential for the franchise's future in gaming. Massive's reveal for Star Wars Outlaws kept in Star Wars Eclipse's quality, albeit with a more straightforward unveiling of its themes and characters. Featuring the game's protagonist prominently, the 2-minute video shed a great deal of light onto what fans should expect from the open-world action-adventure. In lieu of the ominous chanting and drums was expository dialogue, setting the stage for a more grounded Star Wars story, invoking elements of Rogue One and Andor. The gameplay showcase hosted a day after the initial trailer further peeled back the curtain on Star Wars Outlaw, introducing the world to Kay Vess and her struggle against both the Syndicate and the Empire. Though Star Wars Eclipse and Star Wars Outlaws are set centuries apart, they are both unmistakably Star Wars. From visceral interstellar dogfighting to weathered thoroughfares bustling with surface commerce and seedy underbellies. Both trailers view as a love letter to the distinct qualities of one of the world's most beloved IPs. Between the two trailers, the entire spectrum of Star Wars is on fine display. Star Wars Outlaws is announced for 2024, with Star Wars Eclipse tentatively set to release in the same year, making the near future an exciting time for gaming fans of a galaxy far, far away. PlayStation 5 exclusive game Spider-Man 2 will be released on Friday, October 20th with a Venom whose alter ego isn't Eddie Brock. When Spider-Man 2 was first revealed, it was confirmed that Venom, one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains, would be featured as one of the primary antagonists. But while Venom was featured prominently in the Spider-Man 2 reveal trailer, he didn't make an appearance during the extensive PlayStation Showcase presentation from last month. The Spider-Man 2 footage at the PlayStation Showcase was focused on Kraven the Hunter. showing Peter Parker and Miles Morales coming into direct conflict with his goons that have invaded New York City. That footage also showed Peter outfitted with the symbiote suit, but it didn't reveal how that happened or how the symbiote will eventually become Venom. Those questions have yet to be answered, but fans now know that Venom will not be Eddie Brock in Spider-Man 2. Insomniac briefly appeared at Summer Game Fest to show off new art of Kraven the Hunter and Venom, confirming that the Venom in Spider-Man 2 will not be Eddie Brock, but stopping short of who exactly will be Venom in the game. This shocking detail was confirmed alongside the October 20th release date. Since Eddie Brock isn't Venom in Spider-Man 2, the question remains who will take on the mantle of Venom in the game. Some fans have theorized that Peter Parker will become Venom, but that doesn't seem likely. In the world of the Insomniac Spider-Man universe, Harry Osborn is terminally ill. It seems that his father, Norman Osborn, has acquired the symbiote somehow and plans on using it to help cure Harry. Considering TH's, Spider-Man 2 definitely seems to be pointing in the direction of Harry Osborn becoming Venom. With Brian Intihar himself announcing that Eddie Brock will not be Marvel's Spider-Man 2's Venom, it seems more likely than ever that Harry Osborn will be one inside the suit in this universe. Now there's another piece of evidence that further hints at that outcome. One of the newly released pieces of concept art for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 shows off a fight between Venom, Peter, and Miles in the bottom left corner of the screen. Eagle-eyed fans will notice a billboard that reads, Emily and May Foundation. Though it seems unassuming at first, this billboard references two of Marvel's Spider-Man 2's central characters. The May refers to Aunt May herself, and Emily refers to Harry's mother, Emily Osborn, who died from the same illness that now threatens Harry. The placement of this billboard in this piece of concept art seems very intentional on Insomniac's part, with it being the only clear piece of writing in the entire frame. Launching in October, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 will have multiple editions available for pre-order as well as a slew of bonus outfits for those who want to put down money prior to launch. On the PlayStation blog, Insomniac's community manager James Stevenson spoke a little more about the game, confirming PS5 features like 3D audio, faster web swinging, and more. The post also went on to confirm that on June 16th, players can start the Spider-Man 2 pre-order process and score a bunch of bonus items in the process. All pre-orders come with Peter's Arachnite suit and the Shadow Spider suit for Miles. Each one has an additional 3 color variants, and players will also score 3 bonus skill points, and an early unlock for Web Grabber gadget. However, Insomniac also has plans for a deluxe and collector's versions of Spider-Man 2 as well. Digital Deluxe comes with the game, all pre-order bonuses, an additional 2 skill points to flesh out each Spider-Man 2 character, and bonus photo mode items. It also comes with 10 additional suits, 5 for each hero. Finally, the Collector's Edition takes things even further. Not only does it include everything mentioned above, but it also adds in a steelbook case and an extraordinary, high-quality 19-inch statue of Miles and Peter battling Venom. For those curious, the Digital Deluxe Edition is set at $80, while the Collector's Edition pushes things to $230, and according to Insomniac, it's only available while supplies last. Also worth noting that the Collector's Edition does not come with a physical disc and instead includes a voucher for the digital version. The Digital Deluxe Edition of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 comes with a few new suits, but fans cannot unlock them through gameplay. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was already said to be much darker than the first Marvel Spider-Man game and its 2020 spin-off Spider-Man Miles Morales when it was first announced back in 2021. And the latest batch of gameplay footage from May's PlayStation Showcase confirmed that in many ways. The emotional stakes are certainly higher in Spider-Man 2, but its ESRB rating isn't that far removed from those of its predecessors. The Entertainment Software Ratings recently posted its rating for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 on its official website, categorizing the game as T for teen. The reasons for this rating include the expected violence, as well as blood, drug references, and mild languages. More specific acts mentioned include enemies using guns in battle, a character being choked to death, a dead body being turned over, and blood dropping on a leaf. Overall, the ESRB's rating for Spider-Man 2 isn't too out of the ordinary for Marvel-based action games, as Peter and Miles frequently battle foes using punches, kicks, and web-based attacks. However, the acts listed in this rating could offer some clues about Spider-Man 2's darker story. As mentioned before, Peter becomes much more aggressive while under the symbiote's influence. Kraven and his clan are hunting the Spider-Men using guns and other weaponry. And monstrous enemies like Venom and the Lizard will likely draw blood using their razor-sharp claws and teeth. More importantly, Marvel Spider-Man 2's official ESRB rating is a reminder that the highly anticipated sequel is getting closer to release, much to the excitement of players who enjoyed Insomniac's previous Marvel titles. Now that the rating for Spider-Man 2 is out in the open, it's only a matter of time before Peter and Miles swing onto the PlayStation 5 this fall. I've got a lot of games to play and look forward to from all of these showcases, and 2023 has been absolute banger of a year, and let's hope 2024 continues this trend. And that's all for the video, guys. Like and share the video for a greater audience. Comment your thoughts on the topics, and donations are always appreciated. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and until then, from SMPV, it's goodbye.